Good morning, everyone. What an array of our audience. Hello to you all. And to those who are online, welcome. We're a bit late because I had needed to wait for a quorum. And we now have that. In case you don't remember, my name is Jane Dolan. I'm the president of the Flood Board. So welcome. There'll be a test. Welcome board members, welcome board staff, and welcome our audience here in the room with us and online. Please know that our meetings are recorded. You usually hear that voice across it. Okay, let's do that. So staff who's monitoring this has indicated that all those who have asked to be online have been admitted. So I will officially call to order the meeting of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, Friday, January 24th, 2025. I think I finally got to put in 2025 on things, not 24. So welcome all to the new year, and we hope it's a good one. Our first agenda item is to establish attendance and our quorum. So I'm going to ask Board Clerk Jonah Knapp if you will call the roll. Mr. Knapp.
Member Andrews is absent. Member Bosler.
Present. Good morning.
Member Griego.
Here.
Member Countryman.
Present.
Secretary Johnson.
I'm online. Good morning, everyone.
Vice President Beline.
Here.
President Dolan.
I'm here. Turn the microphone. That confirms that we have a quorum. We have six members of the board that are at the meeting. One is online and 5 are here. And we have one who is not here because, is it okay to say she went to Africa? Probably not. Thank you for that. So let's proceed. Item 2 on our agenda is an item for introductions or announcements. And I'm going to turn both of those items to our administrative officer, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, President Dolan. So first, a welcome. I'm pleased to welcome our old friend Darren Suen to the meeting today.
How old is he?
Darren was recently appointed as the Executive Director for the San Joaquin Area Flood Control Agency. Congratulations, Darren. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, please come forward.
Thank you so much. Good morning, President Dolan, Vice President Valines, and board members, old friends, colleagues. It's great to see you all again, and I'm really excited to be in this capacity and working with all of you again to protect the Central Valley. You know, wasn't too long ago I was with the board and all the great work that you're doing here. I look forward to partnering with you to continue that work going forward. I also wanted to pass along some words from Chris Elias. You know, as you know, that I'm succeeding him, and he is going to be here though in a part-time capacity and supporting me during this transition. When I let him know that I was coming here this morning, he sent me a text, and these are, as Chris as usual, great remarks, and so appreciate all the work that he's done. He wanted to pass along his warm regards to the board members and staff and leadership for all the support for the San Joaquin community these past few years. We've set off a partnership journey on solid foundation, and we would like to keep that momentum moving forward. And so we want to remind you that the project partnership agreement that you signed on September 30th of 2020 is resulting in a groundbreaking this April. So hope you mark your calendars for that April 18th date that we have, and we can get you more information as details progress. He also wanted to thank the board and staff for their attending the Smith Canal Gate ribbon cutting. I remember seeing President Dolan and others out there as well. And then the joint field trip with the Department of Finance and Legislative Analyst's Office back in August 14th, touring the multi-benefit project of the San Joaquin Basin. So again, on behalf of Chris's words and the entire SAJAFCA board and its stakeholders, thank you for your support. And again, look forward to working with you all. Appreciate it.
Well, Executive Director Soon, we are looking forward to continuing to work with you. We like our alums. We'd like them to stay, but you know, they do move on to bigger and better things. So we're going to be coordinating quite a bit. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee, more?
Yes. For information, we have a new ex officio board member from the Senate, Senator Monique Limon, who was recently appointed chair of the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Water. And Assemblymember Diane Papan remains the Assembly's ex officio member as she remains chair of the Assembly Committee on Water, Parks, and Wildlife. Lastly, I have a farewell. So we bid farewell to Ryan McGeehee, who is moving on from the board's inspection section. Ryan made meaningful contributions to the board in his relatively short tenure here. He's moving back to the Bay Area and is returning to the private sector. And we wish Ryan best in his new role. Is he here? I don't think he's here. No, he's not here.
Well, sorry for that. Whoever needs to do this, and it's probably all of staff, please let him know we appreciated that he was here as long as he was. And when he decides that the Bay Area is too crowded, he's welcome back.
That's all I have.
That's all you have? Okay. Board members have any announcements? Okay, good. That's only for us. We'll get you all during public. Next item here is a brief overview of the agenda. This is an overview that I provide, so know the run of the day. When it's time for a business item, there will be a more thorough explanation and introduction. Excuse me. Item 4 will be minutes. There are 2. Item 5 is consent item. That's items grouped together. There's 3 of them for board action, but one or more can be removed if there's a desire. Item 6 is public comments. This is the time that hopefully I have cards here that people can come to the podium and make comments on something that is within our jurisdiction and not on today's agenda. These are not actionable or discussionable, if that's a word. I prefer, but I don't require that you do a speaker card, just so we have that information. And then online, raise your hand and you'll be identified. Item 7 is a written submittal of a legislative update assembled by our executive officer. We tend not to deep dive into that one. Item 8 will be a presentation of levee inspection results by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There are 2 systems under that item. Item 9 is board items, and there are 2. One is action, and one is a presentation of an issue that will be on a future agenda. Item 10, 2 matters from DWR. One is acknowledging receipt of the monthly activity report. Happy to do that. And the other will be more length, an annual inspection and local agency report. Item 11 is a list of staff submittals of their monthly activities. And it's an opportunity for interchange and questions and comments from the board and others for that matter. Item 12 is for board members to comment on any activities, and we will talk about committee updates and schedules. Item 13 is a list of upcoming meetings, dates and locations, some of which in the future we're not sure where we'll be. Item 14, closed session. Mr. Dua, closed session? No closed session, so we'll adjourn at that point. So we're ready to go? Go. We've done 1, 2, 3. So item 4 is approving minutes. There are two to approve, October 25th, 24, November 15th, 24. Secretary Johnson, can you
Good morning.
hear? And, oh, there you are.
Thank you,
Good
President.
morning.
This item is for the minutes for the meetings stated by President Dolan. I reviewed them, and I believe they're in order, and I move that they be approved.
All right, there's a motion to approve both by Secretary Johnson. Is there, and a second by MJG, Board Member Griego. Does anyone wish to make a comment on the minutes? Board members? I see no one. Audience? Any hands up? This is perhaps one of the most routine things we do. Please call the roll for this.
Member Andrews is absent. Member Bosler,
Aye.
Member Griego,
Yes.
Member Countryman,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice President Belines, President Dolan.
Aye. All right. The motion carries unanimously for the number of board members we have at this meeting. So we will move on. Item 5 is our consent. It's called consent because we take action if there is consent to not discuss. Items that board staff has thoroughly reviewed. Some we have heard prior and now they're on this to be approved. And they're considered fairly routine. 5A is to approve staff findings on the letter of intent for Reclamation District 2060 Hastings Track, Solano County. Item 5B is approving permit Union Pacific Railroad Bear Creek Bridge replacement in Merced County. Item 5C is to approve a permit for bridge replacement in the city of Chico, where I reside, on Pomona Avenue. The bridge will cross at Pomona Avenue. Is there anyone on the board who wishes to remove any item for discussion? I don't see that. Anyone in the audience want to remove it for discussion? I don't see anybody standing or hands up. Do we have any hands up online? Okay. Then we are ready to proceed with a motion to approve the 3 consent items. Is there a motion? Moved by Bosler. Second by, was that Countryman? Thank you, sir. Second by Member Countryman. Please call roll.
Member Andrews is absent. Member Bosler,
Aye.
Member Griego,
Yes.
Member Countryman,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice President Belines, President Dolan.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously for the number of board members who are attending this meeting. Thank you. Item number 6. Boy, this went fast. Thank you all. Item number 6 is public comment, and I have 3 cards here, so I'm going to call them in the order that I have them. The first one is Nancy Nistern. I see her coming forward, representing herself. Good morning, Ms. Nistern.
Morning, thank you. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Usually have a problem. Thank you. Now I can't read. Okay. Thank you for your time this morning. The no action alternative in the 2023 draft of the American River Common Features Project is the same proposal as in the 2016 General Reevaluation Report, GRR, which includes bank protection, i.e. riprap armoring, and launchable rock trenches. The 2023 preferred alternative is basically the 2016 preferred alternative with the addition of launchable rock tows and tiebacks. We've learned that engineers in India were experienced with launching aprons as far back as the early 1900s. Central Board of Irrigation and Power was our historical entity. The use of these similar launchable rock tow trenches and tows have been criticized in many comment letters. These structures consist of deep, wide trenches filled with large quarried rock. If they launch, they leave deep trenches in the riverbanks, and if they don't launch, the erosion protection could be considered overkill when they weren't needed. Many comment letters for the American River Common Features Final GRR Report of 2016 and the report of 2023 requested alternatives to the rock bank and launchable rock trenches, asking for more alternatives. The core response in 2016 was, the proposed bank protection and launchable rock trench measures are the only two measures that will address the significant erosion problems on the American River. So is that true? We rely on a system used in irrigation practices discovered 75 years ago in India. We were hoping to see more modern alternatives in the 2023 draft report, something that explores the use of nature-based solutions or more environmentally friendly solutions. We're still interested in discussing these and other issues before the project begins with the irreversible destruction of so many trees of Sacramento. We again request a workshop with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, and I thank you for this time today and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We kept that under 3 minutes. Would you be willing to leave your written comments with? Oh, you did. Thank you very much. Mr. Engler, Tom Engler, representing the California Central Valley Flood Control Association. Could you please control the floods?
If
Good
I
morning.
could, I definitely would. Thank you, President Dolan, members of the board. Happy New Year. It's been since last year since I've seen most of you, so hopefully the New Year's getting off to a good start for everybody. Today, we just wanted to come on the record and say how the local flood communities really disappointed with the budget released by the governor last week and the significant cuts to DWR in the flood world. So we're hopeful we can work with folks in the legislature to get that beefed up before it's finalized this spring. And then the second thing is the one that I always bring up, and I understand that next month we'll be seeing a presentation from board staff and core staff on the permit process and timeline, and see if there's any ways we can start streamlining that. But I wanted to make sure that we continue to keep that on the record. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us in our concern about the budget, but we may be small, but we're effective. Okay, next one up is, oh, I have someone online. Oh, Mr. Nudek has got its own agenda item. I don't call on you yet. Is there anybody with a hand up? Okay, then we'll proceed. Item number 7 is legislative update. You're going to say submitted.
Yes.
It's submitted and interesting. It's on our agenda if anybody wants to read it. Item 8. I didn't think we'd get here this fast, so here we are. I'm going to ask Mr. Dosu to come forward from board staff. Item 8 is presentation from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers inspection results for named area 0003, which is in Butte County. My county. Better get it right.
Hi,
Good morning, sir.
good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. Today I am here. Travis, can you pull up the other presentation, please? Oh, that was the wrong presentation. We're actually going to brief item 8A first, and then we'll move on to item 8B.
Item 8A on my agenda is the Butte Creek. the Mud
Yes,
Creek levy.
that's correct.
Did I say that incorrectly?
No, it was just the presentation behind you. It was the wrong one. So
Oh. I was correct. The wall
the
is not.
slide was off.
Thank you.
All right, so
worried
we'll
me.
get started again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zubair Dosu, manager of the Deferred Encroachment Compliance section, and today I'm here to help brief one of the inspections we have today, which is the Chico Mud Creek levee system. That will be presented by Emily Green, Chief of the Corps Inspection Section, Acting Chief of the Corps Inspection Section, and myself. And following this presentation will be item 8B, which will be a presentation on the inspection report for Twitchell Island. And that will be presented to you by Jeremiah Peak from my team and Emily from the Corps as well. So we do have LMA representatives and district engineers in attendance with us today. For the Chico Mud Creek levee system, we do have Kim Hunter. She is the Deputy Director of the Land Development and the designated floodplain administrator for Butte County Public Works. Her attendance is virtual. And in the audience with us today, we have Elizabeth Ramos, Senior Engineer for KSN, who are the district engineers for the Chico Mud Creek levee system. So they are both welcome to answer questions and give comments as well. Here we have a vicinity map of the Chico Mud Creek levee system. It is located in Butte County, approximately 85 miles northwest of Sacramento. The levee system provides protection for the city of Chico, and it is maintained by Butte County Public Works. So next off, I will hand the presentation over to Emily, who will take you in for a closer look of the 4 levee systems and their 8 segments.
Good morning, Ms. Green.
Good morning. Thank you, Zubair, for that introduction. President Dolan, members of the board, happy to be back to talk about the results of our most recent inspections. So to elaborate on these systems, from what Zubair showed on the previous slide, so there's 4 systems that make up the levees that surround Chico. These are part of the Sacramento River Major and Minor Tributaries Project. The 4 systems are comprised of 8 segments, as defined by this map on the screen, and hold back floodwaters from Big Chico Creek, Sandy Gulch, Sycamore Creek, and Mud Creek. The systems reduce flood risk to the city of Chico and its suburban areas and some agricultural lands. Okay, so next I'll be showing the system report cards. Again, there's 4 systems, so I'm going to be showing 4 report cards. So the first one here, we're showing Unit 3 East system. So overall, this system was determined to be in good condition. There were 0 categories rated unacceptable. And so in other words, there were no deficiencies observed that we expect to have a negative impact on project performance. The highest rated category was assigned was a minimally acceptable. And so based on the inspection results, the system is active in the PL 8499 rehabilitation program. Next report card, this is for Unit 1. So 2 categories were rated unacceptable in this system, including encroachments and animal control. The unacceptable rating means deficiencies were observed in these categories that are expected to have a negative impact on project performance. So this is based on the inspection results, the system is inactive in the rehabilitation program. Third report card, this is for the Units 2 North and 3 system. On this system, 1 category was rated unacceptable, and that was for encroachments. Oh, I'm sorry. I see, I wrote just 1 in my notes, but I see there on the report card, there's actually 2. There's also a U item for depressions and rutting in this system as well. And based on the results of this inspection, the system is also inactive in the program. And finally, we have the report card for the Units 2 South, 4, and 5 system. This is the largest of the 4 that protects the city of Chico. So this system, 5 categories were rated unacceptable, including encroachments, erosion bank caving, animal control, settlement, and depressions and rutting. This system is also inactive in the rehab program based on the inspection results. So next I'll show a few example observations. I just have the 1 slide and not 4, 1 for each system, because the bulk of the unacceptable deficiencies were related to encroachments and animal control. And I feel like this slide really does a good job demonstrating the overall typical conditions of all four systems. So all of these specific observations were assigned the highest unacceptable rating and are expected to have a negative impact on project performance. So photo number 1, we're looking at animal burrows on the levee slope with holes that were measuring about 5 inches in diameter. Burrows were observed on both slopes in this particular area, and this condition was observed to extend for approximately 2 miles. Photo 2 shows the outlet of a 24-inch culvert that crosses the levee 15 feet below the crown. Some maintenance issues identified included cracking and displacement of the surrounding riprap protection. And sediment was observed partially inhibiting function of that flap gate. Although the largest concern was the results of the video inspection. A video inspection performed in 2018 resulted in a likelihood of failure rating of 5, which is associated with the highest level of risk. Photo number 3. So this one doesn't look scary, although it is highlighting a potentially very serious concern. There were several areas throughout multiple systems where the levee was measured to be smaller than the as-built indicated they were designed to be. So this photo is showing a crown width of 8 feet, whereas the as-built showed the levee was constructed to be about 12 feet.
Wow, what happened?
And finally, photo 4, it's showing bank caving within 25 feet of the waterside levee toe. There's a vertical surface of about 4 feet shown here, and it was projected to be reducing the foundational soil of the levee or the levee embankment by about 2 feet.
Is that on the water side?
Photo 4, yes. Yes.
On that number 3, it's a little confusing.
Member Countryman?
Excuse
I'm doing that for the person who's transcribing. So go ahead.
me. On number 3, can you explain what we're looking at there?
Sure.
Is that like, did somebody come in and put a road in and take part of the levee away, or what's going on there?
So the reason behind the issue, we don't know. All we know is what we observed in the field was a crown width of about 8 feet, whereas the original design intended for the crown to be 12 feet wide. So we have concerns that a significant portion of the embankment is missing, although the reason for that is unknown.
Excuse me. I mean, it looks like somebody took borrowed material from here. Is that right? I mean, on the left, there's like a vertical drop there. Is that?
I think that's just the shadow on the left. I don't think there's a vertical drop. I think it's,
And it doesn't indicate water there, it's just shadow.
I believe so,
of the
yeah.
photo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does have your typical levee prism shape.
Yeah, that's requires some investigation on the county's part of the accretion of this over the time and the uses that are joining it.
Yeah.
I can tell how old this system is when you said it also includes Sandy Gulch.
Hmm.
20 years ago, the city changed that to Lindo Channel.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good to know.
I mean, losing 4 feet of the top of your levee is a pretty significant loss.
I can't hear you. Talk. I was just asking you to speak up.
What I said was losing if the levee,
4 feet.
minor levee 12-foot top with design down to 8 feet, that's like a huge loss. I mean, it's incomprehensible that that's not from erosion or something. That's like somebody took the material or it was never built to its original design. I mean, I don't know what to say about it.
I don't think there's an answer today, but clearly we want one.
Mhm.
So, I know a few people in the county do.
Okay. Any more questions for me, or I'll pass it back to Zubair. He has a few more slides and examples to go over.
Looks like no questions further from the board. I don't see anyone in the line. Mr. Dosey.
Well, thank you, Emily. Zubair again from the board. And we'll go ahead. doesn't seem to be working. All right, so what we're looking at here is a comparison from the 2011 core inspection to the 2024 inspection. And what you can notice is the improved areas, they're highlighted in green. And for the first category, general, there were improvements all across the board for each of the 8 levy segments. They improved in operations and maintenance manual, emergency supplies and equipment, flood preparedness and training. And for the unit 2 north, unit 3 levy segments, and also the unit 4 east levy segment, for the items affecting PL 8499 eligibility, they each improved in animal control. For the unit 4 segment and the unit 5 segments, those segments did improve in slope stability. And lastly, for the unit 4E segment, it did improve in erosion and bank cave-in. As Emily mentioned in her presentation, we do have one system that is active in the PL 8499 program through passing the Corps' inspection, and that is the unit 3 Sycamore Creek levee segment there. That is the system that is shown second to the right. The other 4 levee systems, they are currently inactive, but I am told there is a draft LOI in the works. That draft LOI has not been submitted to the board for the review as of now. It's still being drafted, but it's very pleasing to hear that the other 3 levee systems will follow in line to seek eligibility in the PL 8499 program, so that they can receive federal funding in the event of a storm and damage to their levees or flood control works. So moving on, the other improvements are shown highlighted in green, and those are for improvements to the levee embankment in the last category that you see there. Board Member Countryman.
Are any urban areas protected by these levees?
I would believe so. The city of Chico is, this levee system does provide protection for.
I mean, I'm stunned.
I can tell you that this creek of a 4 creek system is key for the flood protection for the city of Chico, downtown and the surrounding neighborhoods. Absolutely.
So, I mean, losing 4 feet of the top of your levee protecting urban areas is totally unacceptable.
That is something we're currently investigating onto why there has been a reduction into the levee. You know, it's quite significant with 4 feet of the top of that levee missing. But when we do find more information on that, we will provide it to the board. So this slide here is a photo reflection of the unacceptable items affecting eligibility. In total, there were 24 unacceptable observations. Those observations do have a negative impact on levee performance. So the first one is the top left that you see there is reflective of one of the 12 unacceptable observations relating to animal control. This photo in particular is animal burrowing that was occurring on the water side and land side levee slope. There was occasional sighting of burrowings on the levee crown itself. At its most densest, there's approximately 20 burrows within a 5-foot stretch. Each burrow accounted for material being removed on the order of 1.5 cubic feet or less of material being removed from the levee. Moving on to photo 2.
Are you on item 3? Or photo 3, was that your comments on photo 3 or 2?
No, that was, the previous comments I made were for animal control.
Okay,
Moving on to photo 2 and photo 4 is reflective of the 11 unacceptable observations relating to encroachments. The top one, as you can see, is the issue where we have the reduced crown width, where the as-built calls out a crown width of 12 feet, whereas this crown width has been reduced to a width of 8 feet. This is the opposite bank of the photo that Emily showed in her presentation, but it still has the same problem. Uh,
and you can see in the background, urban, it's industrial and retail uses.
Yeah,
I can't identify exactly where that is in the city, but it definitely is where urban uses are,
this is along the Mud Creek portion of the levee.
right? Member
Board member
Countryman,
Countryman?
go.
Sorry. When you say as-built, those old core as-built are truly not as-built, they were as designed. Found out through many experiences over time. Is that what when you say as-built, you're talking about the original drawings that the Corps has?
Yes, when I'm referring to the as-built, these are the original drawings from the Corps' design of how the levee was intended to be built
Right.
and documented of how it was constructed, so truly an as-built.
Yeah, I mean, that part of documenting how it was constructed is missing a lot of times in the Corps records I found, right?
Mhm. We do have certain occasions where the as-builts do not match what's in the field, and uh, that is just due to those documents possibly being an error of what was constructed out there. But as the levy is to be, it should match the as-built. So if it does not match the as-built design, it is an unacceptable rating.
Right. Now, seems like, well, I hate to say this, but it seems like the Corps did the construction, they should be responsible for assuring that it was constructed correctly. Isn't that right?
That is correct. And so we're still investigating on why this crown width is reduced. It could have been it was constructed that way to begin with. There could have been some slope failure, which resulted in the levee being reduced in crown width to make up, to stabilize that slope. So when we do find that information, we will provide it to the board. But this item is currently still in review. Photo number 4 on the,
Wait.
oh, sorry.
Are you
Excuse me?
done? Member Grego,
Yeah,
and then Member Bosley.
Thank you. So on picture 1 right there, animal control, that's an important element as it relates to the PL 8499. Is there anything like a best practices for these levy districts to how to combat animal control? I mean, they all have this issue. Every time I see an inspection, it seems to be prevalent, and so is there like a best practices of how to address this type of problem with animal control?
Yes, usually there's a rodent abatement plan in place. I am told that the county is aware of this and currently taking action to resolve this issue. In this area, it's a tricky area because it's an urban levee, right? And there are other animals, so when practicing animal control, it can affect pets and stuff in this area, so they are quite sensitive to that. I think we do have our Kim Hunter online too, if she would like to add anything to the maintenance practice for this area. But from what I know, that it's a work in progress to address this issue.
Yeah, because when the local maintenance areas can share information as it relates to combating, animal control or how to address these encroachment issues, with water districts or private companies like PG&E. I mean, if you share that information, I think it's really valuable when so that everybody understands how to combat these things. Because this is what's keeping them from being, part of the insurance program, the federal insurance program. And
Right.
so it just seems like we see it repetitive, with these maintenance areas, and trying to get a handle on it is where I'm going.
You're certainly right, Board Member Griego. So the saving grace is that there are plans in place. There is the draft LOI that is coming, and within the draft LOI, there will be a section that will speak to the county's plan to address this and abate this issue.
Thank you. We'll take Member Bosler, any other board members, then we'll go to Ms. Hunter, Member Bosler.
Yeah, no, I think I feel very well grounded in that there's a lot of unacceptable items here. My question, and maybe it's is Ms. Hunter with the county, Butte County?
Yes,
okay.
she is.
I'm interested in just, what the county's doing in terms of like why the delay in the LOI and what the plan is and what are maybe some of the reasons why we can't go faster here. I mean, this is of concern given it's Chico. I lived there for 4 years, so we don't want that to, we don't want, a disaster to happen. So I guess if you could just give me a little bit of more understanding of what the plan is to get this remedied.
I'll defer to Liz.
Good morning, members. Liz Ramos with KSN. I'm here on behalf of Butte County. So the county recently took advantage of the FMAP program and recognizing that they have a lot of challenges, said, hey, we need some help, brought us on board. And certainly with Kim, I think the level of urgency is where it needs to be. This past summer, we took a whole tour of the entire levy system. We helped her prioritize what the big items were so we can attack them on a worst first basis based on their budget. Because this is the first year they have FMAP funding, they were able to improve some of the easy but important things like animal control. And so we saw some of that improvement in their new inspection report. There were some erosion sites that we also made note of. And the narrow levee section is certainly at the top of the list, a little harder to tackle, of course. And unfortunately, I can't provide any insight on as to why it is, other than certainly you park and you get out and you can't walk. So it is high on the list for sure. But the county is very committed into addressing the issues and getting back on PL 8499. The LOI is under its final review internally. We're aiming to get it in February. And other programs that they've pursued to really show their commitment are DMP. So as of last summer, they completed 3 maintenance projects on some of those critical crossings. And within the LOI, as Hubert mentioned, the easier stuff like animal control, we really want to attack. Baiting has been a challenge in the urban areas, but we are giving them some alternatives to see where we can maybe attack this at a faster rate. Does that answer the question? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Just one clarification,
Yes.
but I mean, the rate that you can tackle it is obviously limited by resources and.
Yes, and so this year we were lucky because this was an FMAP year, as in 2024. And thankfully through that also got to draft the LOI. So we're hopeful that there's more of FMAP coming out, yeah, to help.
And that's the primary funding source that Butte County has been using.
To tackle some of the bigger
Mhm.
things, yes. Mm-hmm.
What you are pointing out, and what we're hearing is what we know. These programs that assist the local maintaining agencies who are not able to raise their taxes in order to do this, these legacy problem issues really do need the RFNP program, FMAP. It's pretty sad that we have to fight so hard for something that keeps people safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know if Ms. Hunter wants to speak, or you're speaking on behalf of Butte County?
Yes, I would.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Kim.
Hi, everyone. This is Kim Hunter. And I am This is my first meeting, so I am new to this, but I have been a floodplain administrator in 2 other jurisdictions, and I've been with the county for a little over 2 years, and it's been definitely an adventure in learning about this levee system. And regarding the roadway, which is definitely at the top of the list, the levee, the crown travel path. It's my understanding that over time, as the maintenance and dragging the levee for maintenance annually over time, it's not been borrowed material, but it has eroded over time, and that is my understanding. Not borrowed material, nobody's taking material, but it's just worn out through ongoing maintenance and dragging. Oh, each year. Other than that, we also, I noticed pictures in the slideshow, both 2 and 4. In fact, 4 on the screen right now was part of our our deferred maintenance program, and we were really happy to get 3 of those culverts replaced. In a previous slide, there was the culvert that was shown. We'd have to go back a little bit, but it was the culvert with the aggregate and a tree stump. Yeah, thank you. There it is, number 2. That culvert was also replaced. So we are making progress. As I learn more about the levee system and working closely with KSN and their knowledge and assistance, we are applying for funding, any funding programs, and participating in any opportunity we can get to work on this system and get where we need to be. And it's definitely a work in progress, but we have a great team. There were staff changes prior to me coming on, and I think, there's some things that did fall through, and we're trying to pick up the momentum and get those issues addressed. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you for your comments. This is President Dolan. Our board members are, Board Member Bosler.
Yeah, no, thank you for, I'm very glad to hear you're there, and it sounds like you're getting a survey and assessment of what's really needed. I'm just wondering how far along the conversations are about how we think about right sizing what's really needed to improve these things before we have a failure that is not then able to be supported by the federal government. And just wondering if you guys have gamed out and really like planned in terms of understanding the resources that are needed.
And that will be part of the letter of intent, addressing those issues. And we are still working on this. Liz, any comments on that?
Yes, just from hearing the conversation, we can provide more detail. I think right now they're prioritized by type, but really in depth as to financing, not at that level of detail, but we can provide more.
Another thing I want to add just briefly is this levee system is part of our county service area 24, which is obviously a very large area for that county service area, that CSA. So we do have additional funding. We are looking at a Prop 218 election, which will be a very large and expensive election, but to address a larger area and increase fees for more effective management and, of course, funding to correct these issues as well. I don't have a timeline on that, but our Public Works Director, Joshua Pack, he's been moving forward with that and having those discussions. We also work closely with the City of Chico staff and have a very good communications with their staff and a very good partnership with their wonderful engineers there.
Thank you for that. That's great to hear. And obviously we know that there's not enough money in the system, that you're not unique.
Yeah.
But we appreciate all the hard work you're doing to have those hard conversations locally. And definitely, I know I want to speak for wanting to support that happening as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Member Bosler? I know I said that. I do that at home. I say to my husband, turn right.
Mary
Member
Jane
Grego.
Grego. Thank you for that explanation. I'm just going to piggyback on
He said,
Member Bosler. I'm going to put on my county supervisor hat, for 16 years in Yuba County. It's good that you're looking at the 218 process, but also look at your development fees. If you can add in and do a study to incorporate how important this levy system is to the city of Chico, and looking at putting in development fees that would at least add to the maintenance of those levies and keep them in good shape, not only for the PL, 8499, but also just because people, when they look at development in areas, they look at those levy systems. It's become an issue when people want to invest in a community. And so I think it's an avenue that sometimes gets overlooked by county and cities, is looking at your infrastructure. And this is probably one of the most important pieces of infrastructure that you have, is your levee system, keeping the water out of the area of population and keeping those areas dry. So just a
Yes.
thought.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
I have some background on that, but it's background and history. Okay, any other comments from board members? Member Countryman?
I have a question for Zubair.
Oh, okay.
Couple of questions on this area where the levee's only 8 feet wide. Is it on both sides of the?
That is correct. From both of those images, that was both on the right and left bank of Mud Creek. So,
And
there-
what's the length, the extent of it?
Emily, do you know the exact?
I don't have that information in front of me, but it is documented in the report, so we can provide that information to board staff and they can
But
pass that along.
it's not 100 feet, it's 1,000 feet, or?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just trying to
a
get an idea of the
significant length.
magnitude.
Okay, so about the whole segment is what I'm hearing, so the report documents.
So I'll just make a comment here as an engineer that's been an engineer for many levees. The levee was not reduced in size because of dragging. That's beyond any possible comprehension that that could be true. It sounds like this may be actually a core project that would be needed here, because the funding to do it all by yourself is not there. So I think as part of your, but part of the things that the local people should be looking at is a core project to bring that up to where it was never constructed in the first place. It was supposed to be constructed to 12 feet, and it wasn't. It was constructed to 8 feet for some reason. And core project may be necessary to bring it up to the 12-foot width.
On that point, I mean, we don't know why it's 8 feet today, but the documentation does show that as constructed drawings, the O&M manual does say that the crown width should be 12 feet. So I have every reason to believe that's what it was constructed to. But of course, it was a long time ago. So certainly it would be worth investigating the potential reasons for that.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the 1950s, so no,
Yeah,
no one
that's
needs to
right.
put their hand up if they were alive then, because that's embarrassing. But any other questions from board members? We look forward to the letter of intent. Very much. Thank you very much. You got a summation, or are you moving on to the next one?
Yeah, so we didn't really finish this slide, but we'll carry off where we left off. And so thank you
Okay.
for Kim's addition, her comments there, because she explained that the photo number 4 in the bottom right corner was a recent DMP project where they did improve this pipe. This is a 18-inch reinforced concrete pipe through the levee. It's 4 feet below the crown. In its last video inspection, it did not have good ratings for health of the pipe. It had a high level of failure, but it has been recently replaced and improved. This facility has not had a video inspection on record yet. For the last video inspection record was from 2018, and the requirement is for video inspections every 5 years. So when that video inspection is done, it will essentially remove this item as being unacceptable. And lastly, I know we jumped around a bit, but photo number 3 in the bottom left corner shows erosion and bank cave-in that occurred on the levee there. This is the one unacceptable observation for this category. This photo in particular, you're seeing at most a 4 feet cut into levee prism and in height, and 2 feet in width cut into the levee prism. This damage was observed over 1,400 feet of levee in this area. And so that will conclude my presentation unless there are any questions or comments are welcomed as well.
Any further questions, board members? Audience? Online?
All
We
right.
did our questions before we allowed you to sum up. So thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I will now pass the next presentation off to Jeremiah. And if Chavez, we can get that pulled up.
We're now moving to item B, as in best, presentation for inspection results for RD 1601. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Mr. Peak, Jeremiah Peak from board staff. Good morning.
Good morning, President Dolan and all the members of the board. I'll wait a second while the PowerPoint comes up. All right, my name is Jeremiah Peak, and I work for the Central Valley Flood Protection Board with Zubair in the Deferred Encroachment Compliance section. Emily Green is still up here, so you've met her already. We're also joined by Chris Nudek and the District Superintendent, Recorder Jr. Thank you. So, today we're looking at Reclamation District 1601, Twitchell Island. Twitchell Island is located about 30 miles to the southwest of Sacramento. And it helps this particular levee system protects the western side of Twitchell Island. The other sides of Twitchell Island are protected by non-federal levees. Next up, Emily has a more detailed view of the district.
All right, thank you, Jeremiah. Okay, so this levee system is part of the Sacramento River Flood Control Project. As Jeremiah said, the system's made up of 3 levee segments, although only one of those is federally authorized and under your board's jurisdiction. And that's the segment along 3 Mile Slough that borders Twitchell Island to the west. So that purple line there on the map. This system reduces flood risk to the agricultural lands of Sacramento County. All right, so here's the report card for the system. Overall, the system was determined to be in good condition. There were 0 categories rated unacceptable. So in other words, there were no deficiencies observed that we expect to have a negative impact on project performance. So the highest rated category was assigned a minimally acceptable rating. And so based on the inspection results, this system will remain active in the PL 8499 program. Okay, so next I'll show a few example observations. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, there were no overall categories rated unacceptable. However, there were some individual observations rated as unacceptable because action is required of the sponsor LMA to address a concern, but there is overall a less risk associated with these individual observations. So the following issues, individual items received a minimally acceptable or an unacceptable rating. So starting with photo number 1, this shows an area where vegetation was overgrown on the waterside slope, and it inhibited the inspector's ability to fully inspect the levee. So things such as animal burrows, cracks can be hidden by this condition. Photo 2 is showing an 8-inch steel pipe through the levee, and it's visible on both slopes. We're looking at the water side here in this photo. During the inspection, it was observed the siphon breaker was broken, although the LMA has reported to USACE since that it has been fixed and is now operational. This pipe is also permitted. The specific concern that we had with this pipe is that no video inspection or pressure test has been performed, so the condition of the buried portion of the pipe is unknown. Photo 3. So this concern is a little bit hard to see, but what we're trying to show here is there's a 6 to 12-inch dip in the levee crown that extends for about 150 feet. If you look right behind the car in the photo, I think it's you can most clearly see that dip there we're trying to capture. So not a significant depression, but the cause was unclear. So we captured it and recommended be investigated in case there's something like settlement occurring. And the levee crest height needs to be restored to its design height. Lastly, photo 4, we're looking at riprap on the waterside slope. So no issues identified with the riprap specifically, although the tall grass and weeds within the rock inhibited our full inspection, therefore which led to a minimally acceptable rating for this observation. That concludes my slides. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? I see none. Audience? We're going to do that. We're going to bring Mr. Christopher Nudek forward. We were waiting for me to call on you. I saw that.
That was correct. I was being polite. Thank you, Board Member Dolan and board members. I'm pleased to say I'm here on behalf of a active district, which is not common for us in our field because we get called in for problems. But I wanted to go over a couple of issues, some of which are not in the photographs, but I'll explain them because I think it's just important for you to understand. The first, weeds. Weeds are an ongoing problem on all these reclamation districts. Here with me today is Rick Carter, our superintendent. We've been going through some troubling times with staff. We seem to get them and then we lose them. We get them, we lose them. You need to have staff, you need to have them throughout the year because Twitchell's in probably one of the windiest areas in the Delta, and you cannot spray when it's blowing any wind whatsoever, just because of the transfer of that herbicide onto the adjoining fields. So problematic, something we're working on. If we have the personnel, we can operate in a much better condition. So that's something that the district is working on and trying to get the appropriate maintenance personnel. Number 2, the siphon pipe. Measured as critical, in our minds, not critical. But one of the primary issues, aside from the siphon primer valve, is the positive closures. You cannot put a positive closure on a gravity siphon. And I started on this process about 7, 8 years ago with the Corps back in Louisville, trying to explain that you cannot put a valve on a gravity siphon because you cannot hold a siphon vacuum with a valve in it. And everyone says, why not? Valves are airtight. No, they're not. The only type of airtight valve is really a food grade valve, stainless steel, running anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, depending upon the size of your siphon. I said, that's not practical when you look at these farmlands that have anywhere from 15 to 30 siphons. What's our alternative? Well, we worked out the alternative was we put the pipe on top of the levee, fill over the top of it, and thereby get by without having to put the positive closure on it. We just have not gone forward with that. We are going to start that on Twitchell this coming year. We'll do one at a time because once we do that, we take a look at the entire pipe, the condition. We put in access holes for the video inspection something that we don't routinely do, because as they operate, they typically are only buried through the crown, and you can see the condition on either land or water side by the operation themselves. But because it's a requirement, we put the inspection ports and then therefore start the inspection routine. Another item that I wanted to speak to, and that can be an expensive process. I mean, you're talking somewhere in the range of $40,000 to $80,000 to put a siphon in. So they're not cheap to do, because you end up replacing pipe and quite a few other things. The other was there's a piezometer, and a piezometer is a slotted 3-inch tube that is run vertically into the levee to monitor seepage and groundwater conditions. Excuse me. It's an historical piezometer that is no longer needed and is no longer being monitored, that was asked to be removed. In order for us to remove it, we just don't come and grab that pipe and take it out. We have to go through a complete permit process with Sacramento County. We have to come in and over drill the hole, go to the bottom of it and grout it from the bottom up. So basically what's called, it's an abandonment of a well. Again, that process is not overly extensive, but it's just a little bit of a hassle. One that we can undertake, and cost-wise, not that expensive. We're probably talking on the order of $10,000 to $15,000 along with permit fees. Another thing that we'll do. So all I'm here today is to indicate we appreciate the inspections, because it always puts us on notice to do our job. We had some veg management that we hadn't gotten to. We've since gotten to it, and the water side is going to be under control this coming year. So any questions? Otherwise, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today.
Thank you for that. And I will note that Board Member Johnson has arrived, so he's no longer participating online. Welcome. Any questions from board?
Great.
We're
Thank
not
you.
brave enough to ask you a question.
What's that?
We're not brave enough to ask you
Oh,
a
no, let's
question.
go right ahead.
Thank you for all your effort.
You're welcome.
LOI, SWIFT,
You're right. Well,
moving
that's,
forward.
thank goodness we have the SWIFT process. And quite honestly,
Yes.
the SWIFT process, it goes to the core. The core introduced that, but the state of California enabled us to get there. And it was your urging through the board, partially because you have the liability and responsibility, but the funding element is really encouraged and caused us to get the ability through our, our boards and clients to actually perform that work. And overall, I think that's one of the most healthy programs that are moving forward, is that FMAP. And unfortunately, probably under duress now with funding, but we've certainly taken advantage of that. So thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you as well. I do have a question. Member Grego, I got that one right. Member Grego.
Thank you. Thank you for your attendance and explaining some of the things you're doing there in the
Certainly.
district. In the regards to the picture, I think it's number 3, the sloughing, the dip. What do you think that is?
It's really just heavy traffic. So this particular levee supports quite a bit of large equipment. This Twitchell Island is a gas field, and quite a bit of gas equipment, large semi trucks for extraction of moisture and things out, travel that road routinely. And it's something that's been in existence for quite some time. We're aware of it. 6 inches is not something we jump on when I've got critical problems on the San Joaquin, or I've got sloughing on 7 Mile. So it's as Liz said earlier, we go through a kind of a prioritization. But now that it's mentioned, we take note of it, and it's not a big project, and we'll get out and clean it up. You can see it, and you can see it in the picture. So, but it's heavily trafficked, and it's nothing to speak of. 3 Mile Slough, interestingly enough, though, is a highly seeped levee, highly seeped. We have about a 85 to 90 foot berm, 6 foot deep, sand gravel, the typical drain seepage berm, and it flows 24/7, substantial water, substantial. If it were an urban levee, you could not sustain it. It would not be something that, and it moves material, it moves sand in some locations. But in order to manage that and to offset that, you're talking tens of millions of dollars, as you well know, to do and this is not sand that's 60 feet deep or 70 feet. It's 120 feet deep. So this is something that we're on the order of $4 to $5 million per mile So just in an island like this, it's 2.5 miles, you're talking something on the order of, 12, $15 million. We've got bigger problems in the San Joaquin River non-project that we'd have to invest in before we do that. So we watch it, we maintain it, we manage it, but it is a very heavily seeped levee.
Thanks for that. Because anytime I see like that kind of sloughing, I always wonder about what's happening, underneath that.
Yes.
The
Yep.
material. I mean, when we took down the Feather River levee and saw the amount of sand, we knew that it was only gonna be a matter of time when it was gonna have another break. And so getting into a clay stratus, putting in that slurry, that was important, but it was protecting people and properties, it wasn't just protecting.
Well, this
farmland.
protects properties and gas fields and a lot of value, but it's just it's an assessment of risk.
Right.
We do have a berm that it was placed back in the late 90s. That's a substantial berm, and it's behaved pretty well. We had a small sinkhole developed this year associated with some foundational sands being moved. It was actually interesting that the place that failed was associated with a Corps of Engineers design that we duplicated. And it's a measure that we as an engineering firm have gone away from, but they placed a fabric on the lower end of the rock. So you have typically these drained seepage berms are sand, gravel, then fabric, and then fill on top. They put fabric on the bottom side of the gravel. Well, that only operated about 6 months before it became organically clogged, and the water no longer went up into the drain and drained out. So now it's skirting along the bottom of the rock, and it's carrying sands. That's what happened in this slight depression on the berm. It was carrying sands out. We could see them. We knew it was a matter of time, and we had about a 20, 30-foot diameter collapse. We removed that fabric, and now it's back working as intended. But that fabric that was employed by the Corps, we adopted it in that setting. We don't do it anywhere else now, but that was the problem for that. But yeah, it's unique. But we watch that. We watch it very closely. These are the kind of things that we observe and keep an eye on it. If it were to move or we get any cracking, I mean, Ricardo here, our superintendent's out daily on that levee, painting and crack measuring. Sometimes there's shrinkage cracks, but if there's any vertical displacement or any horizontal translation, we'll be investigating that.
Thank you for your attendance and your
You're welcome.
conversation.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Nudek, would you give me the name of manager again?
It's Rick Carter Jr. Rick Carter Sr. retired, and his son fortunately was in place to take over as a superintendent.
That's what
So
we count on. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for being
Thank
here
you.
as well. Any further questions from board before Mr. Peak sums up? Nope. Audience? Online? There's a nice picture of you, Brian. Mr. Peak, you have some concluding remarks?
Yes. Thank you very much. So I had some details of the report card. So as you can see, the system since the last inspection in 2014 has improved in several areas: the flood preparedness and training, slope stability, erosion bank caving, and then the depressions and rutting have all been improved since the last, and they're all acceptable at this point. Yes, thank you guys. The system, like we said at the very beginning, is active in the PL 8499 program through inspection. I have 4 more photos of the issues. Usually they would be things preventing the system from being eligible in PL 8499. In this case, they're just items that were marked by the Corps during their inspection. Number 1 is vegetation growth. Like we talked about before, the vegetation growth has been addressed since this inspection. This inspection was May of last year. I heard that recently the levees had been grazed using sheep. Is that right? Yes. So in the Corps report, 3 of the 9 unacceptable items were vegetation growth. Number 2 is another instance of settlement. There were 2 instances of settlement. This is the other one from the one that Emily showed us a picture of. It has the same depth, but this one is 200 feet instead of 150. Picture number 3 is that piezometer well that Chris had mentioned. So 4 of the 9 unacceptable items were encroachments. This is one of them. It sounds like it is planned to be removed at some point in time. And then the last image there is of 2 metal siphon irrigation pipes. So there's a 12-inch and a 14-inch one. One of them has a ABO permit. Both of them need a video inspection, and then they both have positive closure devices, but they are on the land side instead of the water side for these particular pipes. And that is what I have. Did you guys have any questions for me? We also have.
All right, that's the summation.
Mhm.
The next thing on my slide here is to say thank you. Mr. Nudek?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak again. The one thing I wanted to refer to is we talked about settlement in 2 areas. And this may be a little bit of a ironic discussion coming from a district engineer, but we don't mind heavy equipment running on our levees, compacting our crown, namely because it's typically being done during peacetime. And if we do have settlement or unconsolidated crowns, we want those to be beat down and get a little bit of settlement, giving us the opportunity to correct that and come back in with a stable foundation in the event we do have a levee condition that we need to access. When we talk about flood fights, every successful flood fight we've had is because of access, period. When it comes down to it, if you can't get equipment to the site beyond the marine equipment, you are dead in the water. An 8-foot wide crown is not acceptable for access, right? You can barely get a pickup truck down that. But at least it was maintained from the standpoint of all-weather road. And so all-weather road and stable foundations are important. So having minor settlement occurs, and it's something that we should be more attentive to, but it's recognized and something we will correct. But we don't mind it. We, run the trucks on it. They're not going to get stuck up there. And if they do, that gives us an opportunity to fix it before the flood seasons. But it's something that we are very, very conscious of, and where we've had our successful flood fights have always been around very well maintained accessibilities on our district levees. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Definitely appreciate that information and description. Sometimes overlook it. Board members? Any other hands raised in our audience in the room? Online? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to use my prerogative as the president to call a 10-minute break. And I'm going to watch my watch. The board meeting will reconvene. It'll look like 10 minutes to me. We now are at item 9, which is board items, and there are 2. So none, and we'll introduce them as they come. Item 9A is to approve a permit, 19777, dwelling on Sacramento River. Selena Ortega, board staff, will provide information on this item. Still morning. Good morning.
Good morning, President Dolan and members of the board. Let me put that there. Testing is this okay? This is great. Okay. All right. My name is Selena Ortega, permitting engineer with the board, and I'll be presenting agenda item 9A, which is Eric and Jennifer Kreinert's new residence project located on Long Island in the Sacramento River of Sacramento County. Oh, I have this guy. So the Kreinerts are seeking the board's authorization to construct a single-family residence with a septic system and propane tank, and to remove a shed and a lean to an L-shaped shade structure. The dwelling consists of a slab-on-ground garage overlain by a second-level living area. This project is located on the water side of the Sacramento River right bank levee at 17312 Grand Island Road, Walnut Grove, which is just east of the city of Rio Vista. The board has the following authority for this project at the location. The highlighted Title 23 sections are directly related to the reason that we are having this hearing. To elaborate, a permit is required as these are new encroachments with an adopted plan of flood control. Since the proposed project does not meet one of the dwelling standards, namely Title 23, Section 113B1, the applicant has requested a variance to be approved by the board. Pursuant to Title 23, 11B, when, quote, when approval of an encroachment requires a variance, the applicant must clearly state in the application why compliance with the board's standards is infeasible or not appropriate, end quote. I will be providing project information, analysis, and staff recommendation first. And Eric and Jennifer Kreinert are attending remotely and can answer any questions the board may have related to the variance request. So the following slides are to get an understanding of where the project is located. This location map shows the project is approximately 15 miles northeast of Antioch and 3 miles northeast of Rio Vista. I have also included Stockton for reference. This vicinity map shows where the project is located on Long Island and its relative location to the surrounding 2 federal levees. The island consists of approximately 32 legal land parcels. Note that Grand Island Road also runs through the length of Long Island and connects to Grand Island by way of bridge shown on the right. And the Sacramento River is the only stream that contributes to the flood flows at this location. So this site map shows the existing conditions at the project location. The project site is on an approximate 1/3 acre property and defined on the northeast by a narrow dredge cut along the river levee and by the Sacramento River on the southwest. The project proposes to construct a new dwelling with a septic system at the rear of the property and a propane tank at the front end. And note that the project activities are outside of the theoretical levee prisms and shall have no impact to the levees. And the nearest levee is over 150 feet away. Sorry. Now for staff's analysis of the existing conditions at the site. The current ground surface is reasonably flat with an elevation of approximately 10 feet. The design water surface elevation for this channel is 13.16 feet. And there is a light metal frame carport and a shed-like structure with a corrugated metal roof on the northerly portion of the property, which is to be removed with this project. As previously mentioned, there are levees near the project on the north and south, right and left banks, and the project is outside the levee section on either side. The board is the non-federal sponsor regulating encroachments along this federal channel. to ensure the design flow of 35,900 cubic feet per second is not impacted. This project has undergone a federal review. The site plan shows the proposed conditions. Here you can see the proposed dwelling with the 1,500 gallon concrete septic system at the rear of the property and the propane tank at the front end. Moving on to the staff's analysis of the proposed conditions at the site. The dwelling consists of slab-on-ground garages overlain by a second-level living area. First level is to be uninhabited, and there will be no excavation into the native soil. Rather, the dwelling elevation will be raised by a foot with an aggregate base fill and another foot for the foundation. The foundation will feature a concrete masonry unit wall at the base, enhancing stability and flood resistance. Under design flow conditions, the first floor can expect to be submerged by a little over 2 feet of water, with the second floor 8 feet above the design water surface elevation. The structure has been designed to withstand these conditions and is properly anchored to prevent flotation. To give you a better understanding of the elevations, we have a cross-section showing the dwelling with relation to the federal levee on the right. The red line shows the typical water surface in the Sacramento River and accompanying side channel, as well as the ground elevation post-project. The dotted blue line represents the design water surface elevation of 13.16 feet, and the highlighted in yellow shows the garage slab or base elevation of 11 feet. The highlighted pink shows the inhabited second level elevation, which is 8 feet above the design water surface. And the green highlight points to where 1 foot of AB fill will be placed, and above that is another foot of foundation, making up the garage slab. 2 feet total. Now, the Kreinarts are seeking to utilize the dwelling in an adopted plan of flood control for year-round occupancy as a residence, which does not comply with Title 23 standards. Therefore, a variance request was submitted for the design, which will be discussed later. To analyze the hydraulic impacts on the adopted plan of flood control, a HECRAS model was developed. The model utilized the O&M and 1957 design flow of 35,900 CFS and a base flood elevation of 13.16 feet. The hydraulic model parameters and results were presented in a letter prepared by Balance Hydraulics and are shown on this slide. The resulting water surface elevation due to the blockage is 13.26 feet, which indicates a 0.1 foot rise. Note that under design flows, the first floor of the dwelling will be submerged by 2¼ foot of water, which is why the first floor is not inhabited. Lastly, no significant impacts on velocity, scour, or flood risk were found. Board staff's conclusions of the hydraulic analysis are as follows. Overall, the project results in insignificant hydraulic impact with a rise of 0.1 feet in water surface elevation, and the United States Army Corps of Engineers issued a letter of permission on this project. The proposed dwelling is located within the federal channel but outside both levee sections with no excavation taking place. Therefore, no potential adverse impacts to the levees are expected. And since the project is a sufficient distance from the levees, a geotechnical investigation was not required. The Kreinarts intend to inhabit the dwelling year-round as permanent residents. This does not meet the Title 23, Section 113B1 standard for dwellings within an adopted plan of flood control, which states that, quote, new dwellings, with the exception of dwellings for seasonal occupancy, non-flood season, are not permitted, end quote. A variance is required for this reason. Forward staff's analysis of the variance request includes the following. The standard is intended to prevent loss of life and property and ensures developments do not aggravate flood conditions or impact flood control facilities. An excerpt of the variance request submitted by the Kreinarts is shown, stating that they believe the specific design and avoidance measures incorporated into this project address the underlying concerns that the regulation seeks to reduce. Oops. Okay. The design and avoidance measures reducing the risk include the following. Firstly, the dwelling is engineered with a reinforced foundation and anchored securely, preventing flotation. The side slopes are further protected with erosion-resistant material, enhancing structural resilience. The hydraulic analysis found an insignificant 0.1 foot rise in water surface elevation, confirming that the project will not aggravate flood conditions. And prior to occupancy, the applicant will implement an emergency evacuation plan, effectively reducing the risk of loss of life during potential flood events. This plan will be reviewed and approved by board staff and required as a permit condition. One moment, please. Okay, much better. Additionally, the project exceeds Title 21 requirements such as the Section 113B2D, which requires the finished floor elevation be a minimum of 2 feet above the design water surface elevation. Since the design water surface elevation is 13.16 feet, the minimum finished floor elevation is 15.16 feet. And the new dwelling proposes an elevation of 21 feet, which exceeds the minimum requirement by over 5 feet, ensuring the habitable space remains well above anticipated flood flows. It was determined the dwelling will not aggravate flood conditions or impact flood control facilities. So the island consists of 32 parcels, all zoned RD3, low density, single family residential, according to Sacramento County's general map viewer. Board staff identified 15 permits for dwellings on Long Island that were issued between 1949 and 1984, listed here. And the following is board staff's recommendation on the variance request. Staff agrees that occupancy during the flood season increases the risk of loss of life, but because the Kreinarts will implement an emergency evacuation plan, this risk is reduced. Again, this plan will be reviewed and approved of by board staff, included as a permit condition and implemented prior to occupancy. Furthermore, the flood-proof dwelling design improves structural integrity. USACE review did not object to the project. Therefore, from a flood control perspective, with the evacuation plan in place, board staff recommends the board approve the variance and permit. More information regarding U.S. Army Corps' review is as follows. The Corps conducted their review, federal review on the impacts of the new dwelling with septic system, and determined that the post-project conditions would not be injurious to the public interest and will not impair the usefulness of the project works. Their review accumulated with a letter of permission that will be incorporated into the issued permit. Board environmental staff has determined that the project is exempt from CEQA. And based on staff's analysis of the proposed project, it is recommended that the board take the following actions. Adopt the CEQA findings, approve the variance to board standard 113B1 and the permit as provided in the staff report, and direct the executive officer to file a notice of exemption with the state clearinghouse. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the board staff's findings. If no questions, Eric and Jennifer Kreinart are attending remotely and can answer any questions that the board may have related to the proposed project. Thank you.
Thank you for that overview. Board members, questions? Member Griego?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation today. My question, I guess, is for legal counsel. There's 15 other residents there on this island that has requested the same kind of permit variance. How does the state look at that in regards to any liability? When they are the ones that ask for the permit, they are the ones that ask for the variance. This board has the authority to do so. But if anything should happen, in the future, where would the state be on this particular, with all 15 residents out there?
Thank you, Board Member Griego. It's my understanding that these other permits that were issued are quite old. I have not reviewed those personally, so I'm not sure what the conditions are in those permits. Those older permits tended to be more bare bones, and some of them were issued before the board probably had regulations that would have affected those. So to the extent that there are, such as in this case, the permittee, if approved, would be accepting liability for the structure.
And it sounds like to me that they've gone way over and above, which is great. They kind of know the conditions of that area and the potential of what could happen. Sounds like they're prepared for that. So I just wanted to know from a legal's perspective where we stand there. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other board members? I don't see any audience. Do the applicants wish to make any comments or not? Mr. and Mrs. Is it Kreiner? I don't see any hands up. So it's before the board for action. Oh, Mr. Kreiner, do you have something to add? And good morning. You sure he raised his hand? We see the hand raised, but we don't see, okay, the volume's on now.
I'm sorry. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I don't have any further comments. I just thank the board for their consideration and thanks for the staff for all their support and getting this through the process.
Okay. Noted. I'm sure that was a journey.
Yes, just a little bit of one.
Any other comments from staff? None. Okay, staff does recommend that we approve the permit and the variance. Is there a board member to make that motion?
Through the chair.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we adopt the CEQA findings on this permit as stated in the report. And we also approve the variance to this application, and we direct the officer to take the necessary actions as stated on the report.
Member Griego made the motion very appropriately, calling out the action that was requested. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That Mr. Countryman? Seconded by Member Countryman. Are we ready for the roll call? Please call the roll.
Member Andrews is absent. Member Bosler.
Aye.
Member Griego.
Yes.
Member Countryman.
I'm voting yes for this because it's clearly not affecting the project levy in any way and not inhibiting the protection outside of the levy system that the levy system was built for. So based on that, I vote yes.
Okay, that's noted, Member Countryman. It's better that you do that before we're voting. But that's okay.
Secretary Johnson.
Yes.
Vice President Valines. Yes. President Dolan.
Yes. The motion carries by unanimous vote of the members who are present for our meeting. So move on. Thank you, Mr. Countryman. And you snuck that in, Vice President Blind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Nicely done. Okay, item 9B is a informational briefing for something that will be before us as a permit at a future date, I understand. And it is a creek in Merced County. Michael Zalazo, board staff, will introduce the item. Still morning. Good morning.
Perfect. Good morning, President Dolan and members of the board. I'm delighted to lead a presentation today on item 9B for the Black Rascal Creek Flood Control Project. To help generate some discussion around this project as we're moving forward with the design, we can help answer any questions you may have. And since it is an informational briefing, there's no action of the board requested at this time. And the permit is 19643. If I haven't said it before, I'm Mike Salazzo, Senior Engineer with the Flood System Improvement Branch Board staff. So let's get into the project location. The location is just northeast of the city of Merced, about 7 or so miles up towards the foothills. Black Rascal Creek is shown in blue, running down from on the right-hand side from right to left, and the project location is circled in red, and Black Rascal Creek runs through the project. The project provides flood protection it would provide flood protection for the city of Merced and the surrounding communities, including Franklin, Beechwood, and other areas. So I'm going to take a little bit of time on this slide trying to describe the elements of the project. It's quite a involved project. So first, I'd like to start off with the existing state plan of flood control levees. They're shown in dark red, one along the left bank along the left bank of Black Rascal Creek in the middle of the project footprint, and it's about 2,700 feet long, and another along the Fairfield Canal, which is serving the left bank or east levee of that. That's on the left side of your screen. They're both directing creek flows into the Black Rascal Creek diversion channel, which is shown at the bottom, outflowing from the project footprint. So as the system stands right now, there's 2 levees that are around the Black Rascal Creek. So as Black Rascal Creek starts to flood, the area around the North Basin and Yellow starts to flood and get inundated, and water flows down into Black Rascal Creek. So imagine that yellow area is sort of flooded and contained by those 2 levees. So they do those 2 levees, and they act together. They help limit frequent flooding to the south, and they bound flooding to the west by the canal. So they sort of provide an informal flood detention north of the diversion, and they funnel those floodwaters back into the diversion channel. So to improve the system, what the project is proposing, just widening the area that those levees would cover. So to cover more 300 acre area that is bounded by embankments that are shown in black. The one along the west boundary of the project footprint, so just to the right of the state plan and flood control levee, and then one along the southern boundary of the project near East Yosemite Avenue, that's shown in black. And those the heights of the embankments range from 0 feet up in the northwest corner at existing ground level to about 13 feet near the outlet structure. So as I mentioned, Black Rascal Creek runs from north to south through the project, and there's a dashed line towards the middle, which shows about a 2,000-foot reach of the creek that will be realigned to orient the flow into a new principal spillway to avoid any adverse hydraulic effects. Now, the principal spillway, the name is kind of a misnomer. It's a little bit misleading. It is an at-grade, ungated structure, and it's designed to limit flows out of the basin into Black Rascal Creek to less than 3,000 CFS cubic feet per second for the 200-year design event. So it says it's a spillway, but it's more of an outlet structure. It doesn't have a weir, it doesn't spill, and doesn't impound water. It's just an ungated channel constriction that's at flush with the channel bottom. Downstream of the spillway, the channel will be regraded and provided with slope protection. And going to the right, there is an additional 300-foot-long Ogie structure auxiliary spillway with a crest height of 0.2 feet above the 200-year peak elevation, flood elevation. So the auxiliary spillway and the principal spillway and the embankments are all designed to meet the Department of Water Resources Division of Safety of Dams dam safety criteria as a conservative measure to safely pass both the 200-year event and probable maximum flood. Now, in the North Basin, shown in yellow, there's new tributaries with riparian and aquatic vegetation that would enhance existing habitat and connect the floodplains associated with Black Rascal Creek, a secondary channel which would get wet every two, serve this 2-year event and planted with some oak savanna vegetation, and then the tributary channels connecting some remnant channels into Black Rascal Creek to reestablish that, and will be provided with some aquatic and riparian vegetation as well, like mugwort and soft rush, box elders, and willows. And then finally, the existing SPFC levee segment shown dark red along the BRC will be realigned and repurposed. And there's also some few culverts being relocated or replaced, some utility lines, poles being relocated, and some important structures, and then the area to make way for the detention basin to be constructed. So local area flooding has been a chronic problem in Merced County with losses up to $20 million in 2006, roughly 30 million in today's dollars. The picture shows flooding in the city of Merced after an event in January 2023. And to address this issue, the county prepared a feasibility study, which was completed in 2008. 5 alternatives were evaluated, and the preferred alternative, which is presented in this project, was determined based on evaluation criteria including flood risk reduction, environmental benefits, cost effectiveness, and community support. So this is a multi-benefit project. It is increasing the flood protection that the existing system provides from the 50-year design event, and that's 50 years back when the system was constructed in 1956, to a 200-year level of protection now. Not only is it helping downstream communities, it's also reducing peak flows, protecting residential and prime agricultural lands from property damage, while at the same time enhancing water quality by minimizing erosion and improving habitats. Here's the list of environmental approvals obtained to date. With the with the approval of the watershed plan, the environmental assessment by the Natural Resources Conservation Service in November. The project is now eligible for additional grant funding to complete the project. Now you'll see that nearly all of the permits and approvals have been obtained. We're just waiting on 2 right now. The project is waiting on the Army Corps 404 and 408 approvals. And the bullet there where it says the county purchase of required compensatory mitigation, we're waiting on that. We hope to get that completed by October. We did get confirmation from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife that the mitigation credits have been approved. So that's one step further in meeting that obligation. So relating to design, the staff's review of the design and the real estate, the project is unique in that it both can phase floodwaters and can attenuate flood flows during extreme events. So in that respect, it can function, it can be viewed as either a levee or a dam. And when designing the project, the County of Merced contacted the Division of Safety of Dams, DWR's Division of Safety of Dams, and reviewed the project and found it not to be a dam because no barrier exists to impound water since the principal spillway is ungated and at grade with the channel. The Army Corps has reviewed the project and views it as a dam according to dam safety regulations due to its impounding capacity, consistent with Engineering Regulation 1110-2-1156. In addition, the Natural Conservation Service, which is partially funding the project, requires the project to meet certain dam safety requirements based on the designation of the dam. Either it's an extremely high hazard or high hazard dam. So in terms of reviewing the design and applying the standards from the board staff's perspective for Title 23 for the hydraulic and geotechnical analyses, board staff is considering the project as a levee system consistent with the DSOD's determination. The applicant performed hydrologic and hydraulic modeling for the 200-year event and the PMF, which is the probable maximum flood. The 200-year design approach allows the County of Merced to comply with Senate Bill 5's flood protection requirements for urban and urbanizing communities. The project was also designed to safely pass the PMF as a conservative approach if the DSOD had classified the structure as an extremely high hazard dam due to its proximity to Merced. The design features of the basin are shown in the table on the right. I'll just draw your attention to the third line, which is the peak 200-year water surface elevation of 210.1 feet. And the final line shows the constructed top of levee with 215.0 feet, which is enough to cover both the requirements for dam safety and the board's levee standards. In sizing the capacity of the spillway, principal spillway rather, the project team was limited by the objective to provide a minimum clearance of 1 foot beneath the Yosemite Avenue Bridge, which is just downstream of the project outlet structure. So Title 23 requires bridges to have a minimum clearance of 2 to 3 feet. So a variance would need to be requested when seeking approval of a bridge permit for this project. The geotechnical analysis evolved over time with the results of the risk assessment process and the recommendation to construct a clay embankment with a bentonite slurry seepage barrier, roughly 20 feet below land surface to elevation of about 185 feet. So even though the embankments and spillways were designed to safely pass the PMF without failure, the detention basin was designed specifically to detain the 200-year flood. And the figure on the left shows the inundation at the 200-year event without the project, and the right shows the with project condition. With the project, just note that the 200-year event and even the 500-year event floodwaters are held back behind the embankments while reducing flows downstream. So all the water that you see on the left, on the west side of the project is now being attenuated behind the project footprint or within the project footprint. Larger floods would exceed the design capacity of the basin and spill over land. However, rather than spilling into the city of Merced, and to the southwest and across East Yosemite Avenue to the south. As would occur without the project directs flows only southward where they attenuate in agricultural fields. And then here's the with and without project conditions. Without is on the left and with the project is on the right. The project does not enhance the existing Black Rascal Creek diversion channel or its levees downstream. Therefore, there is still a residual risk if the diversion channels were to fail at the design capacity of 3,000 CFS, or if the maintenance was neglected. The project does reduce the risk, however, for floods up to a 200-year event by restricting the flow rates entering the diversion channel. As I mentioned before, the peak 200-year flow rates in the channel will be reduced and remain below the current stated diversion channel design rate of 3,000 CFS. The risk assessment was a key part of designing the project. The applicant conducted a life loss analysis with life sim modeling results. If the system were to fail, a semi-quantitative risk assessment and potential failure mode analysis were conducted with a workshop and report that found that all risks fall within the as low as reasonably practicable range with the incorporation of the report's recommendation. Currently, the Army Corps Risk Management Center, or RMC, is reviewing the project for any induced flood risk caused by the project and is preparing a memo with its findings. The key point in bringing this project to the board today is the fact that the Safety Assurance Review Panel has provided comments, final comments on the project, and which primarily focus on hydraulic connectivity and properties of fill material, backfill material, but nothing major was identified. So we feel it's a key step, bringing this project back to the board for any kind of discussion after reaching that major milestone. Yeah.
Would you say again the name of the review panel?
The Safety Assurance Review Panel.
Okay, thank you.
Into property acquisitions, the County of Merced initially acquired the project's footprint property, as well as a 15-foot landside buffer and waterside buffer for a levee vegetation-free zone. Once the Army Corps defined the project as a dam, an additional area up to 50 feet was required around the toes of the embankments. The Army Corps is reviewing. Let me start over. There are some areas where that are protected, vegetation that are protected by certain regulations and require some vegetation to be there, such as wetlands up in the northwest part of the project. And so the Army Corps is reviewing a request, has reviewed a request for us to have a waiver or a variance from those 50-foot buffer requirements for vegetation-free zone due to the state and federal requirements that these lands stay as they are. And we believe that the Army Corps is in agreement with our design and request not to be bound by that requirement. As mentioned earlier, board staff is considering applying the board's levy standards to this project and permitting it so, which would be consistent with the DSOD's determination. In addition, staff has reviewed the board's dam standards under Section 119 of Title 23, and many, if not all, seem inappropriate to apply for this particular project. While there may be instances where the board's levy standards may not be appropriate due to the conservative design approach, and those may be waived by the executive officer. And this is a picture showing the project site looking south, and with the Fairfield Canal, which is on the western edge of the project that's centered in the middle, and Black Rascal Creek running downstream from the left. And you'll see in the forefront of the picture, there's some flooding that's generally always there, and it aligns with some of the modeling that has been done with or without project. Going back into those slides, you saw a little bit of an area north of the project that was wet. Just a little visualization about what those previous pictures were showing. The project has a long history starting around 2008 with a feasibility study, but the board's involvement began in earnest in August of 2020 with a pre-application meeting with the applicant and board staff. The project has progressed to a 90% design submittal in October of 2023 and a staff site visit with the SAR panel the following year. The board briefing this month updates the board on the events that have taken place since staff last presented in July of 2023 for the final statement of no objection. The schedule estimates final designs and a notice of complete submittal from the Army Corps this summer, followed by a conditional board approval and permit issuance. The key factor in this is the timing of the Army Corps' RMC memo regarding the risk analysis, which is unknown right now, but we hope to receive it within the next few months so that the recommendations can be incorporated into the project. That concludes my presentation. I would like to open it up for discussion. Listed here are a few of the key personnel and project members that are in attendance that can help answer any questions. And I just want to acknowledge we have Nathan Bray and Oscar Ortiz in the audience here, and Rob Toll from Jacobs. Virtually, we have Army Corps staff Warren Rough Corner and Ali Port Baja. Thank you very much.
Wow, interesting. Board members first, or would you like to call the associated folks forward before we go into board discussion?
I would just say if you have any questions that you'd like them to address, call them up, but I don't believe we have any initial comments at this time. Oh, I stand corrected.
Oh, we do.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. Good morning, President and board members. My name is Nathan Bray. I'm the Public Works Director for Merced County. Pleasure to be here. Thankful for the very thorough presentation and informational report. I have our design consultant, Rob Toll, here to answer any technical questions that you may have. He is with Jacobs Engineering. And I have my lead staff member, Oscar Ortiz, here, who's been with the project for quite some time. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and identifying yourself. You represent the county. Yes. I don't see anyone else coming for, you're going to introduce them as they do. Member Grego was first, member Bowser coming up, so.
Just another quick note, it's the importance of this discussion is that we're still trying to develop the final design. So if the board has any comments or concerns that we should address, this is a good time to incorporate it into the project.
Thank you for that. Member Grego, then member Bosler. See.
Good morning. Thank you for the report. I'm curious on that one slide that you had with the flooding. Was that because of overtopping, levee failure, backed up drainage, all three? How did that occur?
So there's a few pictures. So this picture right here, I think is just a general flooding condition for a normal event. I think I would have to ask if this is what you're talking about, or you were
No,
talking
with
about.
the houses that were flooded.
Oh,
You saw
okay.
the semis that were water up to the door. I'm curious, was it a failure of the levee? Was it overtopping? Was it bad drainage? Because like in rural communities like this, I mean, I live in a rural community like that. A lot of times it's bad drainage. And so I was curious how that water got there.
I'm gonna have to ask our representatives from the county of Merced to come up and speak to that one.
Thank you.
So I've been with the county for 1 year. I was not here when this happened, but I do have some knowledge. This is
Just a second here, this is Mr. Bray from Merced.
yes, yeah, Nathan Bray. Yeah, thank you. This was a result of the storms through January and March in 2023, the major disaster declaration that was declared. And essentially there was more water than the system could handle. this area in particular just has poor drainage. It's adjacent to the Black Rascal and Bear Creek stream network system. So it's kind of a combination of both. There were instances of overtopping because the channels, the way that they were designed, just couldn't hold the sheer amount of water that we received.
Thank you for that, because a lot of times, like I said, it's drainage that occurs. What kind of event was that in 23? What was the rating on that event?
Oh, that was a big one.
I would look to Rob. Rob, do you know, has that been quantified?
Sir, you want to come up to the microphone so we can get your testimony on that? Thank you.
We need you on the transcript, sir. I think we know that the storms of 2023 were disaster.
Rob Toll with Jacobs Engineering. The 2023 event really was due to flooding along Bear Creek. There really wasn't extensive flooding in the Black Rascal Creek. The extensive flooding that Mike referred to was in 2006 and actually in 1997 when the levee overtopped over at the Fairfield Canal and followed the original Black Rascal Creek route into the city of Merced, flooded the city of Merced, and then over into the small community of Franklin Beechwood, inundated the water treatment plant, and caused a lot of health issues and flooding. So there's been two very significant events in recent history. 2023 was more of actually a Bear Creek event versus a Black Rascal event.
And I'm betting that there's a lot of septic and wells in that area, and there was probably a lot of cross-contamination that went along with that.
Yes, there's a rural area, a lot of septic, but the damage in the city was also extensive. So the $20 million that Mike was referring to was a combination of agricultural and urban damage and issues.
Yeah, thank you. I have a lot of family that lives in that area, so I'm glad to see this project moving forward. Thank you.
Member Griego?
One of us. Yeah, no, thank you for being here.
I need some more coffee.
When I was reviewing the materials, it's obviously a good project. Happy to see it coming forward. So sorry that you got caught up in these regulatory, in between that I assume delayed the project. I always appreciate when you put the start to the finish so we get a sense of how long these things take, because what I got from the presentation today is you need to start on the next one, because this one is going to help a lot, but it's not, there's still inundation in this other map that occurs. So I just wondered, what is your big long-term plan? This one took 20 years we're still in the process, so 20 years. So I'm just wondering what else you all are thinking about in terms of slowing water down before it gets to the city.
Sure, I think I can answer that. Yes, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Nathan Bray, Director of Public Works from Merced County. The long-term plan is to identify the network of unprotected systems throughout Merced County, much like the Black Rascal Creek watershed was, and develop an approach for protecting those downstream communities. They might not all be flood detention basins like this. They might be a different approach depending on the unique circumstances. The county is currently working with DWR. DWR applied for a grant to assess the unprotected watershed for Miles Creek, which is for the community of Planada, which is in a very similar situation. So that's kind of our next endeavor, working with DWR, and we'll continue with that same approach.
Did you have hand up? Member Countryman.
I had the opportunity to be an expert for the county down there in two lawsuits. I think it was 97 and 2003, whichever year it is, can't remember right now. But unfortunately, the Corps built this project and they used the 50-year design standard because it was considered a rural area, even though the city of Merced's sitting right there. So that's a problem. And this, is great. It's, it's hard to see that as a dam, but I guess you have to, I would definitely go with the levy standard, but you have to do what you have to do to make it happen. And I can testify for sure after inspecting flooded properties during those floods that this project is needed. And it is useful on Bear Creek also because it continues to limit the flow to Bear Creek to the diversion there. So it alleviates some of that flooding along Bear Creek, which is very, very important. So thanks for moving this forward. And, this is record speed compared to a core project. 22 years for a core project. So you guys are doing great.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Member Johnson.
Yes, Brian Johnson. I won't repeat the comments, but thank you for the very clear presentation. Looks like a good project. Looking forward to seeing the final version of it.
I have a couple questions. I think this one's for the county person. Is this area around this project, the uses appear in some instances to be pretty intensive agriculture with orchards and the others are low impact. Is this in any way zoned for urbanization? What's the land use plan for the county around this?
Nathan Bray, Director of Public Works from Merced County. This is generally in an agriculturally zoned area. The city of Merced is, for the most part, west and southwest of this area. I do not believe the city's sphere of influence encroaches near this project area. And the county's general plan is generally ag zoning out here in this area right now.
From my perspective of what's occurred in my county where you have ag and then develop systems for that and then the urbanization comes in, the danger comes with it. So I think that's something to include. So the design here is what's to be. This basin doesn't presently exist. This is part of the design project. Is that correct?
So the area outlined in red doesn't exist right now. That's just the project footprint that is being proposed. What does exist are the state plan flood control levees along the left side of the screen and through the middle. So those two levees there that collect water into that yellow area, that exists. That's the current situation right now.
Okay. Okay. I think my confusion was, I thought I heard you say that the Army Corps federal levies were red. So there's a lot of red there. That seemed a little too rectangular to be federal levies.
I'd say sanguine would be a better
Okay.
description.
Okay. Any other questions, board members? Any more input? This is informational, so if there is nothing else, the flood project for Hamilton City took 22 years, so maybe you can beat that standard. That was led by the Army Corps. Do you have some summation, Mr. Zalazo?
I just wanted to thank the board for its time and your comments. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for thanking us. We do consider it our duty. So we appreciate all this information and bringing it forward so we can have a discussion. Does anyone in the audience want to make any public comment or ask a question regarding this item? Informational briefing regarding Black Rascal Creek Flood Project 2B. I don't see that. Any hands raised? No? Okay, then we can move on. Thank you all. All right, we're moving on to the Department of Water Resources. Items, item 10A is a written report that I'm going to consider submitted. I'm going to briefly say, does anyone want to say something about the report that was submitted, monthly report? Board? You do? Member Bosler, I got that one right.
No, I just noticed that the Delta Levies program continues to be substantially oversubscribed, so that there's a lot more applications and there is funding to allocate. And so that, that obviously there's a need there that continues, which we've heard a refrain throughout the conversation today.
I saw that too, and I apologize. It just seemed like standard practice that that's what occurs. More need than funding, and that still has to be addressed. Anyone else? Anyone in the audience who wants to make a comment or ask a question regarding the monthly report of the Department of Water Resources? Anyone up online? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you. Always good to highlight those things we need to have happen. So we're at item 10B, 2024 inspection and local maintaining agency report. Preston Shotwell will, of board staff, will introduce this item.
Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board.
Morning.
I'm Preston Shotwell. I'm the manager of the board's inspection section. So I'm here once again to introduce DWR's flood project inspection and assessment section, who's led by Wade Wiley. Before I hand it over to Mr. Wiley, I'd like to remind you all of the importance of this annual inspection and LMA assessment report. It's a comprehensive look at the state plan of flood control in our designated floodways, and that helps the board in decisions on projects, identifying trouble areas, regions that have been improved, and very importantly, the changes to the system over time, year over year. Our small inspections team is also aided by DWR inspectors by handling a portion of the field work that's involved with inspecting the projects that are approved by you on a monthly basis and for other projects. Our team is the same size as it has been in the years past, and the number of projects that the board permits every year are numerous. So I want to reiterate, as I have in the past, that we could not cover everything without the support of the DWR inspection group as well. We continue our regular coordination efforts to make sure that projects are tracked, inspected, and documented appropriately. So with that, I won't belabor this, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Wiley, the manager of the Flood Project Inspection and Assessment Section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shotwell. Mr. Wiley.
Thanks, Preston. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. I'm Wade Wiley. As Preston said, I'm the manager for DWR's Flood Project Inspection and Assessment Section. Today, I'll be presenting our 2024 Inspection and Local Maintaining Agency Report, along with the help of Mike Tao, who's an acting senior engineer for the Local Maintaining Agency Assessment Section unit. Normally, we'd have another member today with us presenting, but Sterling York, he, along with the rest of my team, has been called down to LA to help with the post-fire recovery effort. So a lot of folks at DWR are headed that way and supporting that effort.
Well, we hope it's post-fire and there's not another one that takes off. You gonna read the book to us?
That's it. It's nice and thick.
20 minutes.
So, as I've done in the past, I'll start out with the background, our authority, why we do these inspections, what it is we inspect, and how the report that we're sharing with you has evolved over time. So I'll get right into that. Under the authority of Water Code 8360, 8370, and 8371, DWR performs a verification inspection of the maintenance of the Sacramento River Flood Control Project levees, and that's performed by the levee maintaining agencies. And we report our results to the board and the Corps annually on the status of the levee maintenance accomplished under the provisions of Title 33 and the Code of Federal Regulations. And it must be something about this mic that makes for runny noses. Excuse me.
I think it's the room. So I'll join you.
I was fine until I stood up here, so. So we report all that and the levee maintenance that's accomplished under the provisions of Title 33 of the Code of Federal Regulations. We don't have a specific water code that directs us to inspect the San Joaquin, but we do that as a matter of practice every year. So these inspections that we do determine if the levee maintaining agencies are performing their legal and statutory responsibilities under Water Code 12642 and 12657, and if they're meeting their legal obligations under assurance agreements with the state to operate and maintain their flood protection projects. The Flood Project Inspection and Assessment section also performs other inspections based on a 2008 agreement with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board and provides an avenue for LMAs to comply with the requirements under Water Code 9140 and 9141 for the LMA reporting program. So all that sums up to we inspect and report on the state plan of flood control features. In a typical year, we'll inspect a little less than 1,600 miles of levees twice a year. Once a year, we inspect 26 channels, 56 structures, 13 pumping plants, about 1,500 utility crossings, and a various number of erosion sites depending on the year in the San Joaquin River Basin. And we also do designated floodway inspections using aerial imagery from Google Earth on 32 designated floodways. And we provide an avenue for LMAs to comply with their LMA reporting requirements. In the past, whenever we accomplish these inspections, we would provide a report and give a presentation to the board. And at the request of the board, we've combined all of these reports into this one annual report. So over the years, we've made additions and changes to those reports. It's grown. It's at 600 plus pages now. So we've added a designated floodway section, an encroachment section, and a utility crossing inspection section. This year, there's some changes, and you'll notice that. I think we've been talking about it, at least with the LMAs, and you've heard about it from us the last couple years, or at least last year. So, you know, you'll notice that the number of LMAs has changed from 106 to 102, and that's just because a couple of the LMAs have consolidated. And of particular importance to this year's report is the inclusion of the LMA responsible pipes in the overall ratings for each LMA. So in the past, pipes were inspected and rated, but they weren't included in the overall rating assessment of each LMA. They were considered encroachments. We first proposed to include those back in 2015 as, you know, the LMA responsible pipes, the system features. We wanted to include those as part of this inspection. We've been talking about that since 2015. For various reasons over the years, that wasn't done. But along the way, we've been keeping the LMAs informed of which pipes are considered LMA responsible. And we've given them the opportunity to come discuss with us, you know, their thoughts on those or any concerns on individual pipes. So the impact of those changes, they'll be seen in the results. So you're going to see that in this year's levy ratings. And there's more LMAs receiving minimally acceptable ratings than in previous years as a result. And that's, you know, when you see that, it's likely a result of the inclusion of one or more unacceptably rated LMA responsible pipes in those LMAs. And we'll talk more about that. So I've covered that background. You know, today what we're going to be doing is I'll continue on by providing an overview of the contents of that report. You know, what's in there. I'll get more specific about the LMA summary profiles, which are the appendices. That's sort of where the details are. And then I'll review the encroachment section and present the results of this year's inspections. At that point, I'll turn it over to Mike Tao He'll be talking about the LMA reporting results and the results of the utility crossing inspection program. And I'll come back to the podium and finish up with a discussion of some of our other section activities. So the inspection report contains the maintenance inspection results for the levees, channels, structures, and designated floodways. It also has the results of DWR's San Joaquin River Erosion Survey, the LMA annual reporting results, and the results of the Utility Crossing Inspection Program, known as USIP. Some of the other programs that are included in the report are DWR's Flood System Repair Project, the U.S. Army Corps' Sacramento River Bank Erosion Survey, and the Corps' PL 8499 eligibility. And all that information together provided by those programs really helps the inspection unit determine the quality of the maintenance that the levee maintaining agencies are performing. And then the report concludes with the flood project inspection and assessment section activities and accomplishments throughout the last year, as well as summary profiles located in the appendices. So the front end of the report is really the highlights. It's short compared to the thickness of that report. That's the wrap up, the core, the details, the important stuff is in those appendices A, B, and C, and those are the LMA summary profiles. And those summary profiles provide basically a one-stop shop for the LMAs to get all that data that we've gathered and put in that one place for your review. So those LMA summary profiles, you'll notice the format's the same every year, just the data gets updated. The LMA's overall maintenance ratings are found in these summary profiles. The data in these profiles includes the LMA contact information, results from structures, channels, inspections, and the DWR and core erosion surveys. The combination of these results gives us the ability to assess the levee threats and give recommendations on how the LMAs can improve their maintenance. And that section also includes the LMA reporting results, and it provides a summary of each of the 5 parts that they report in that LMA requirement. And Mike Tao will cover that later in the presentation. Before we move on to the results, I want to talk a little bit more about encroachments that are out there. There are over 4,300 non-compliant encroachments identified in the levee inspections. They're broken down into 2 different types. There's a maintenance or an enforcement issue on those encroachments. The maintenance issues are for the most part for encroachments that can be managed by the LMAs. Their maintenance programs usually take care of these things, and they're for system pipes, down trees, vegetation, trash, and debris, that kind of stuff. Enforcement issues are encroachments that are typically privately owned, and those are pipes, fences, pruning piles, and landscaping. We only include the maintenance type issues in the overall ratings for the LMAs. So taking a closer look at the encroachments, there are over 1,200 maintenance issues that we've identified out there that are encroachments. And as you can see on the slide, more than 3/4 of them are pipes. The rest are for things that the LMAs can take care of with their normal maintenance stuff, vegetation or debris and that kind of stuff. When we look at the enforcement encroachments, there are approximately 1,800 more enforcement encroachments than maintenance encroachments. Here we can see that 29% of those enforcement type encroachments are pipes, 18% are fences, 16% are landscaping, and the rest are privately owned items, which include pruning piles, ditches, buildings, crops, and other items. The LMAs are the first line of defense for this sort of stuff, but oftentimes they're not able to deal with this without the board's enforcement section's assistance. So now that we've talked about the encroachments, we can reveal the results of this year's inspection results. Here we have the overall ratings for the levees, channels, structures, and pumping plants in the flood protection system for 2024. We've got the results for all of that, and we'll talk more in detail here. Looking at the levee inspection results, you can see this year's ratings have changed over last year's. As I mentioned earlier, 2 changes occurred this year that affected the ratings. First, the LMA responsible pipes are now being included in the overall rating for each LMA. And second, 4 LMAs were dissolved and absorbed by other LMAs. The impact of the pipes being included is seen in the increase in minimally acceptable rated levees. This year, there were 43 minimally acceptable rated levees, and that's up from 30 last year. Of those 43, 9 moved from an acceptable rating to a minimally acceptable rating solely because of the addition of those pipes. The other levees that were part of that increase received minimally acceptable ratings for all the normal reasons that a LMA will receive a minimally acceptable rating. You can also see in this graph that there was 37 LMAs that were rated as unacceptable. And that's in the normal range of what we expect to see out there on any given year. But it's interesting to note that 23 of those 37 LMAs received an unacceptable rating for at least the last 5 years. The remaining 22 levees received an acceptable rating. So let's take a look at how those are driven.
Can you just repeat what you just said about how many of the systems have been unacceptable for at least 5 years?
23 of the 37 have been unacceptable for
Thank you.
the last 5 years. Inspection items affecting ratings can be seen here. These are issues like pipes, crown surface road issues, erosion, burrows from animal activities, trees, and vegetation. Like previous years, vegetation is the main deficiency that's driving those ratings. And this year's results show that 20 of the 37 levees receiving unacceptable ratings could have received an acceptable rating had they improved their vegetation management.
Could you describe what is the vegetation that's a problem? And are you including trees? Because I can introduce you to some folks who like trees. But what's the vegetation that's the issue? Weeds?
Weeds, grass, untrimmed levee slopes. A lot of times when we get out there, the vegetation hasn't been managed. It depends. I think there are areas that are difficult to manage for various reasons, but sometimes it's the timing of our inspection. We'll get out there before the LMAs had a chance to do that. We do our very best to coordinate with the LMAs to get out there when they've done their maintenance and give them the best chance at receiving a good rating. But it's typically grasses, shrubs, any kind of vegetation. And trees are in there. They're not as big of a factor as just grasses and annual growth.
I know that it's an issue, but this is not like someone's lawn at home where you can take care of it on a monthly or weekly basis. We've got water up against dirt. You're going to get veg.
Well, I think our criteria allows for vegetation on the waterside slope to a certain extent. And this is excessive vegetation. You can't see through it. So we can't see those erosion issues or animal control issues when the vegetation is up that high.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Benjamin?
Just really quick, these numbers represent not, just LMAs as a whole, LMA may have two systems
Mm.
or something. So that's just counted, just the LMA as a whole.
Right. So each levied area, so RD 1600, they may have several units. When we rate them, it's all together. They may have an acceptable rating in 2 units and an unacceptable in a third, and we combine that into.
That's what I thought. I just
Right.
wanted to check.
Thank you. Yes. Well, we combine it into, it's what we look at as miles of deficiency. So we combine that. Anything that's less than 10% of their miles being deficient is an acceptable rated LMA, unless they have unacceptable items, in which case it's automatically an M. Between 10 and 20% of their miles being deficient, that's a M, minimally acceptable rated area. Anything over 20 is unacceptable. All right, thank you. Moving on to channel results. The 26 channels we report on are non-levied project channels specifically called out in the water code and the core O&M manuals. Our inspectors evaluate the channels at specific locations where there are restrictions to the channel, and those are typically places like bridges or road crossings. Vegetation, debris, erosion, and other factors that impact the capacity of the channel are used in the rating analysis for each channel. The main issue driving channel ratings is vegetation. The 2024 channel inspection results stayed fairly consistent within the last several years. Next, we have the results for the structures, and these are typically for things like weirs, diversions, outfall, and drop structures. The structure maintenance ratings remain the same as last year. Vandalism, concrete deterioration, and vegetation is what led to the 11 minimally acceptable ratings, and 1 unacceptable structure of the last 3 years is due to erosion around the head wall and a deteriorating pipe. Now looking at the results of the pumping plant inspection, 12 were rated as acceptable and 1 is unacceptable. And that same pumping plant has received an unacceptable rating the last 3 years because of vandalism and theft. So they just cleaned it out, and the LMA hasn't been able to get it back up to speed without more theft occurring.
So an LMA, doing the best that they can, gets the ding for vandalism. Yeah, no, I get it. It just hard to swallow.
Our inspectors also perform inspection on 32 designated floodways within the Sacramento and San Joaquin drainage basins. And we do that on behalf of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. Inspectors use the latest aerial imagery from Google Earth to identify encroachments that may impact the capacity of the floodway or require a board encroachment permit. Using the updated aerial imagery for 2024, there were just over 1,400 encroachments identified and added to the database this year. The increase in the encroachments was largely attributed to the completion of the initial inspection of the St. John Rivers designated floodway in the Visalia area. Board staff identified a floodway that we had not had in our database before. They provided us the line work and the information. We added it in. And so last year was the first time we'd had staff review that one. So that is why, there's so many this year and compared to last. And that brings the total of encroachments that we've identified in the system to be around 9,800. So this pie chart shows the permitted versus unpermitted encroachments within the designated floodways. You can see that out of the nearly 9,800 encroachments identified, approximately 9,500 require a board permit. Of those, only 10% have a board permit. We know that many of these probably existed before the designated floodways were adopted. And it's difficult for us to really know which of those encroachments were new or existed before the designated floodways were adopted. It's just, there's no way for us to know that. But we identify them and they're in the system. So over 50% of all encroachments identified are structures. The remaining encroachments consist of crops, utilities, and other items like fences, equipment, and debris piles. So that brings an end to this portion of the presentation. Do you guys have any questions for me at this time?
Thank you. I know there's more to come.
Yeah.
So any questions on this portion at this point? It's about 2/3 of the book, right?
All right, well, if there aren't any questions. Okay, okay.
Yeah, right. Mr. Countryman, he will. Member Bosler?
And it might be helpful to have the flood board staff answer as well, but I mean, obviously, this is a huge delta between what's permitted and what we even have. I mean, you all have done aerial inspections, you've identified them, but the analysis about what is impeding floodways has not been done, correct?
Correct.
Right. So that's what happens in a permit process, right? So I just feels like we have a mountain of work that is, I don't really know that we, I mean, obviously there's staff, there's technology, there are things that we're trying to modernize, which is in your staff activity reports that will maybe make us more efficient, but it's still like this large amount of the system. We don't have a good sense of how these structures and how these encroachments are impeding the functioning of the system the way it was designed. So, I mean, I just want to highlight that because I just think it's important for people to be reminded of that because we just, I mean, 90%, it's 1,400 new ones were identified this year. I mean, it's a staggering number. And I so applaud the work that everyone did before the state operations reductions because I think it will benefit us in the long time and some of the bringing our systems into the modern age in terms of technology and being able to search a database that's digitized, all of these things that will make us work more efficiently, but we're still a long ways from even having those tools at our fingertips. I mean, the data I looked at, it looks like we're 8 years. Well, we'll be at the pace we're going, it'll take us 8 years to digitize all of our records. So it's hard to see how we're going to crawl out of this. And it just worries me as someone sitting on this board.
I'm gonna call you Debbie Downer from now on. It's tough. The mountain of effort to modernize the system is huge. And it needs to be done, and we are identifying the work that's ahead of us. We're not unwilling to do it, but resources are lacking. Remember Grego.
Mary Jane Grego. So, I like to use restaurant analogy on these kind of issues, and you can eat a what is it? You can eat a dinosaur, but just one bite at a time type of thing. And so I guess where I'm going with this is that, when we do the permitting process and we look at these encroachments, we don't attach any type of financial with that in regards to making sure that maintenance and repairs are always available. And that seems to be the issue, is that whether they're privately owned or through agencies, utility districts, private districts, utilities, there's no ability to say, okay, well, there's money right there because you put it there, 50 years ago, and now we can replace that pipe. And so when do we go to that process? When do we address that issue so that this doesn't continue to be the elephant that we can't seem to resolve in regards to maintenance? And so I'm just throwing it out to the board and to our staff to say, when do we resolve this issue? Thank you.
You're not expecting an answer today, are you?
In about a half an hour.
Okay. Okay. We'll put that definitely on the list. It certainly matches what Member Bosler said and what we see in the report. Now, Member Countryman?
I'll just comment on this designated floodway. How much effort, how much time and effort are we putting into this? Because it seems to be obviously not any kind of enforcement taking place or impacts taking place with all these. So I just wonder how much is it of your time or, you know, to do this report? Is it a significant cost for you?
I don't think so. Initially, I recently was looking at that. I don't remember the detailed numbers, but initial assessment of a floodway does take a significant effort. You know, we have staff assigned to individual designated floodways, and it might take them a week of work, 2 weeks to go through and delineate all these and enter them in the database. Initially, it took a fair amount of effort. I've got specific numbers if you want to know. But annually, it's probably 1 week of sporadic work for people to go check the new imagery. They pull up, just like this image right here, they'll pull up all the stuff that we've already identified, lay it on top of the new imagery, and then go to work trying to see if there's anything new. And each year we find maybe 100, 150, something like that, you know, less than probably 200 being identified as new.
So it's not a tremendous cost to do this, which is okay. If it was very, very expensive, I would question continuing, but it is valuable information. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. If there's any more questions, otherwise I'll hand it over to Mike Tao, who will be talking about the LMA reporting program and the utility crossing inspection program. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tao. You look somewhat familiar.
I'm back, yeah. Good afternoon, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Mike Tao, and I'm the acting manager for the local maintaining agency assessment unit for DWR. I will provide an update on the LMA reporting program, starting with the background on the program, then cover the results from the 2024 submittals and discuss how that information was compiled and used. The LMA reporting program was established by Assembly Bill 156 in 2007 and is codified in California Water Code sections 9140 and 9141. It requires annual reporting on operation and maintenance activities for project levies, as well as for certain non-project levies. California Water Code 9140 requires that California Water Code 9140 requires that LMAs report annually to DWR, and 9141 requires that DWR in turn report that information to the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. The intent is to obtain information that is observed the intent is to observe information beyond what is observed by DWR levy inspectors. And we are looking for the LMA's perspective on their levy problems and their priorities for levy maintenance, in addition to information on costs. Here are the 5 parts in a concise manner that the LMAs are required to submit to DWR each year by September 30th. In part 1, we ask for information relevant to levee condition or performance. Examples are vegetation issues, encroachments, sediment accumulation, berm erosion. In part 2, we ask for known levee integrity issues. Examples are seepage, boils, animal burrows, levee erosion, and cracks. Part 3, we asked for a summary of maintenance activities performed in the previous year along with the costs. And in Part 4, we asked for planned maintenance activities for the current fiscal year along with costs. And in Part 5, we asked for other relevant information. This year, 97% of the 102 geographical levied areas that are required to report submitted their reports. Every one of them provided a complete report that responded to all 5 parts of the reporting program. The remaining 3 areas simply did not submit a report. There's one area that consistently does not submit a report because they do not have an LMA, and that is NA6 Eastern Honcut Creek. The other areas that do not submit reports seems to fluctuate from one LMA to another each year. Overall, the number of compliant reports hover around the high 90% range each year. For the areas that did submit reports, Part 3 was used to summarize the maintenance activities performed during the previous fiscal year along with the planned fiscal year. Please note, the chart shows the percentage of areas that indicated they performed or will perform these activities. This is not an indication of budget spent on these items. As in previous years, vegetation control remains the dominant activity reported by LMAs, followed by rodent control, levee patrol, levee crown maintenance, and levee repair. Because budgets vary from LMA to LMA and how much they spend on each activity varies year to year, it can be difficult to generalize the LMA spending. However, using data submitted in parts 3 and 4, we were able to calculate the average percent of budget that the LMAs are spending on each key activity. This chart shows the average percent of budget spent for fiscal years 2020 to 2024 and the planned budget for fiscal year 2025. For the year shown, the largest budget was spent on vegetation control, ranging between 32 to 50%. The second largest average percent of budget spent was on the other category, ranging between 24 to 33%. This category consists of miscellaneous costs not directly associated with maintenance activities,
Such as, what's the other?
they consist of administration, equipment, engineering, and insurance costs. So things along those lines that are not associated with maintenance activities. They can also be, some report even like their salaries and whatnot. So all that gets captured in the other categories.
Not directly related to the actual structures or the maintenance activities, but without the people, the
Correct.
insurance, and
Yes.
time to do it, that's not, it would be a ghost, I guess. Okay, thank you.
So all the remaining activity listed here appear to be receiving on average less than 10% of the LMA's budget over the last 4 years. Cost per levy mile and other budget information specific to each LMA is provided in the summaries profile in appendices A, B, and C of the annual report. Now I would like to provide an update on the Utility Crossing Inspection Program, or also known as USIP. I will briefly discuss the background on this program, including the last 5-year inspection cycle, then explain the ratings that USIP applies to the inspected pipes. Lastly, I will share the results from the 24 inspection cycle. The USIP program was created to identify and inspect all utility crossings penetrating the state plan of flood control in both the Sacramento and San Joaquin flood control river, Sacramento and San Joaquin River flood control project. The first phase of the program was a desk study, which began in 2010. This phase identified and documented utility crossings within the state plan of flood control. The desk study gathered information from O&M manuals, as-built, levy logs, permits, and other records, and the study was concluded in 2012. And then at that time, the database contained approximately 7,500 utility records. Of those records, 34% were identified as drainage, 31% as irrigation lines, and the remaining 35% were other types of crossings such as electrical conduits, pressurized gas lines, drinking water lines, sewer lines, and communication conduits. After the desk study, USIP inspectors began the field verification and inspection phase. The inspection phase started in 2012 and took 4 years to complete, concluding in 2015. After completing that first round of inspections, USIP continued to improve its data, perform targeted inspections, and research additional crossings. In 2019, USIP began a continuous effort to inspect all 7,500 crossings on a 5-year cycle. The first cycle of inspections was completed in 2023. Last year, 2024, USIP began the second 5-year inspection cycle. When USIP is not performing inspections, a more detailed review of the inspection record is conducted. This includes adding a detailed description of the crossing, all of its appurtenances, and adding installation dates and referencing documents that acknowledge that the pipe existed, such as bore permits, O&M manuals, as-bills, and levy logs. Additionally, new records are created to account for pipes that have been replaced and new pipes that have been installed. As a result, the total number of records in the database grows each year and currently stands at approximately 8,100 records. Out of those records, some of them are pipes that have been removed, are considered outside the levee or bored under the levee, but are kept in the database for historic and tracking purposes. USIP uses a slightly different rating than the levee inspectors, but the ratings are in alignment with each other. USIP's urgent rating coincides with the levee inspection's unacceptable rating, non-urgent with minimally acceptable, and no action needed with acceptable. Urgent pipes are those with severe pipe integrity issues such as pipes with holes, missing or broken flap gates, or leaks causing erosion to the levee prism. Non-urgent ratings are for pipes with less severe issues such as pipes with missing appurtenances or minor leaks. This rating also includes administrative issues such as pipes with no proper authorization. And lastly, no action needed ratings are for pipes that do not have issue and has proper authorization. In 2024, USIP inspected 1,881 pipes within the LMAs listed here. 7% of them were rated as urgent, 55% as non-urgent, and 38% as no action needed. Since 2012, USIP has inspected all known pipes within the system and has assigned them a rating. The pie chart shows the ratings for all records, including 2024 results. 6% of these pipes within the system are rated as urgent, 56% as non-urgent, and 38% as no action needed. As Wei previously mentioned, system feature pipes, also known as LMA responsible pipes, have been included in the LMA's overall rating as of this year. In preparation for this change, LMAs were notified and provided a list of pipes that were considered LMA responsible. The LMAs were given time to review this information and identify any pipes they felt were not LMA responsible. USIP then worked with them to either resolve those issues or provide an explanation as to why these pipes are considered LMA responsible. There are impacts to the LMA rating as of this year as a result of this change, and 9 LMA that were previously received an acceptable rating saw the rating change to minimally acceptable because of urgent rated LMA responsible pipes that are now being assessed. Had they addressed those urgent pipe issues, they would have received an acceptable rating. And this concludes my presentation of my portion of the presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that overview and describing what was in the pages here. Any member countryman?
So what non-urgent, I mean, it seems like a pipe needs work or it doesn't need work. What does non-urgent mean?
So let me go back to that slide. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so urgent pipes are, there's a kind of example on there on the top right there. So if the pipe has holes, it's missing a flap gate, anytime water can penetrate the levee and go onto the land side, pretty much that's considered urgent pipe. And then non-urgent is mainly, administrative issues, or if there is a problem to the pipe, but there's no immediate threat to the levee, then we deem those as non-urgent. So pretty much those are maintenance issues for the most part.
But just, I mean, 56% are non-urgent. I'm just trying to get an idea of what, when you go out, what comes in with a non-urgent score? What type of deficiencies?
There's a photo right there. Looks to me like a pipe above ground. Does it go through the levee somewhere? I don't know. What do we do with gas companies that put it through a levee? What do we do with the conduit so we can all have internet?
Yeah, so those gas, most of the gas lines that we don't have information on we'll deem those as non-urgent because we don't have inspection records. And so those, gas lines, if we don't have those information, then, we deem those as non-urgent. And so we kind of follow up to see if we can get inspection records on those to see that those pipes are not leaking, those pipes are not busted.
That'd be nice.
Did I answer your question, Joe, or
No,
what?
you got let's take the gas pipes out of the equation. For the water pipes, what constitutes a non-urgent need to be repaired?
So holes in the pipe, missing flap gates, the ability for the water to flow from the water side to the land side uncontrolled, those are unacceptable items.
Mr. Wiley's back.
Oh, Mr. Wiley, yes, thank you.
We got a transcriber. He's not here.
Anything that doesn't rise to that level, but is still an issue with the pipe, like small pinhole leaks, damaged appurtenances, like the standpipe is damaged, folded over, but isn't structural to the pipe or the levee, those are typically minimally acceptable or non-urgent issues. And I'll say the ratings that you see, the reason there's a difference between the USIP ratings and the levee inspection ratings is when USIP was developed, it was developed with a thought that we were going to turn this database over to the LMAs to manage their pipes. It was going to be for them to document their own inspections and to speak in terms of maintenance. So that's why we used urgent it was an urgent maintenance issue, an urgent priority for the LMA. We were able to get traction with the LMAs to use it. And as we've taken it over and treated it more as an inspection tool for us, those categories have remained, and it's so embedded in our database that we keep it. So that's the original thought was we didn't think the LMAs would want to use the Corps' terms of unacceptable on themselves when they were going out and inspecting their own pipes. So we used maintenance type language.
Okay, but so the non-urgent, I'm imagining are low cost things. I mean, the difference between no action needed and non-urgent. If I'm the LMA, what does this tell me about what needs to be done as the non-urgent? Urgent's clear.
Mhm.
It's just not clear at all on what the non-urgent is.
Yeah, non-urgent is the biggest category because it covers not only maintenance type issues, but also our own administrative type issues. Missing permit is a non-urgent issue. There's nothing for the LMA to do there. And we don't include those types of issues in the inspection reports that we give the LMAs to take action on. We withhold those items from those reports. So you will only see maintenance type non-urgent items in the detailed inspection reports that the LMAs receive. Does that help? Okay.
I need to say at this point for the record that members Griego and Bosler have left because they needed to go. We retain a four-person, we're not gonna take any more action, but we had a four-person quorum.
All right, Mike Tao back here. Are there any other questions?
When do you think you might come back on board?
Well, depends on the questions I am being asked, but
No,
otherwise.
that's fine. Nice presentation, and it's good to see you. And this is clearly a coordinated partnership effort.
So, thank you.
Which we
Well, I'll turn it
appreciate.
over back to Wade.
Oh, my turn again? Come on, thank you. All right,
Mr.
thanks.
Wiley, you're the other.
Wade Wiley, manager for the flood project inspection section. All right. Now that we've provided those results from our inspection programs, I'd like to highlight some of the other activities that we're doing within the section. We have the levee view program, which we go out on the levees and we collect 360-degree imagery of the levees, just like Google Earth Street View does. We have that for most of the levees. So if staff want to do a virtual site visit, they just log into our tool. They're able to find a location on a map, drop a pin, and they can see what it looks like at levee view. It's really nice. I think I'd like to see Steve and his team using it more, and other board staff and DWR staff, but any chance I get to promote that, it's a great tool. We also collaborate with the board's inspection group, as Preston was saying earlier, to provide oversight on permitted construction projects, making sure they're staying in compliance with their board permit. We're also leading the effort to improve flood fighting skills throughout the state. This year, our inspectors taught flood fight training to 44 different classes to a little more than 1,200 participants all throughout the state. In addition, we updated the flood fight methods handbook in both English and Spanish versions. During the 2024 fire season, our section staff were activated for nearly 4 months on 5 different fires. They scouted burn sites, managed CCC crews and the installation of about 29 miles of emergency protective measures, erosion and sediment control type measures. And that's to help protect our waterways from contaminants from those burn areas. Our staff are currently deployed to LA for that same purpose. We also continue to participate in coordination meetings throughout the year with the board, the Corps, the LMAs, and just trying to keep that communication going and good coordination throughout the year. And we're always updating our levee logs as new permits come out, as construction is completed. We're updating those levee logs, making sure that we have those encroachments documented and permits shown so that when the Corps goes out to do their inspection, they have that, at least the most updated version that we have available for them. And something new this year, we began flying our drones to do inspection work. So we're able to get to some sites that normally we wouldn't have good, safe access to. And that's really helping us do a better job out there. And our flood fight specialists presented at 13 preseason flood coordination meetings, helping to ensure communities throughout the state are ready for that flood season. So that's what I have for you this afternoon, or this afternoon. I want to thank the board for the opportunity and for your attention.
Thank you. That is a lot of work. It's clearly informative. Some of us need paper, I will admit to that, but also is on the desk. And thanks for summarizing it in the PowerPoints as well. Board members, any more questions, comments? I think there's some items in here that we could maybe focus on a workshop.
Just to thank you for the presentation and you and your whole team for all of the work. It is very helpful for us to get a sense of what we're up against, even if sometimes it seems a little daunting. It's good to know, and if we don't know, we can't make the case to do something about it, right?
Right.
Thank you, Member Johnson.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience brave enough to get up now? Any hands raised? Wow. Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Good luck, Mr. York. Glad that you're down there helping other folks in Southern California. Mr. Tao, always good to see you. Come by anytime. You got a good guy.
Thank you.
I asked for online. I actually did. Thank you. People helping me figure out what's the board member name and did I ask for online? Got it. Okay, we're at item 11, staff activity reports. I think you've all noticed that the number of branches and divisions has reduced somewhat. That's what happens when we don't have appropriate funding. So we have written updates
from Executive Administrative Division, I think that arrived last night, today. Operations Division, Flood System Improvement Branch, say that twice fast. Natural Resources Management and Planning Division. Anyone want to say anything? Of course you do. Member Countryman.
Item 11B, the Operations Branch Report, specifically on page 12. There's a chart there that shows permitting activities, includes November, December, and year to date. And we've sent 73 applications to the Corps for approval or review. And in November, the Corps reviewed 0. And in December, the Corps reviewed 2. Is there any explanation why this underperformance or lack of completion on this? Is somebody from the Corps here can address it?
It does not appear that we have Army Corps of Engineers present.
I'm wondering if we should.
Are you brave enough?
write
Get
a-
up. There is one. I don't think this was anticipated. This is a difficult issue that needs resolution. Permits can't go forward because of the 408 process. Mr. Gonzalez.
Juan Gonzalez, Levees and Channels Branch with the Army Corps of Engineers. There's a lot in the district that's happening, and I can tell you there's about 120 permits that we deal with at any given time, and so the Central Valley Flood Protection Board is one of our sponsors. We do have other sponsors that we process permits for, permissions. And so there's nothing that's just sitting there doing nothing. We have staff. We have, unfortunately, lack of staff as well. And so our resources can be constrained. And so our staff is moving as fast as we can. We do obviously through the Section 408, we do have to comply with laws. And so we are working with a various number of disciplines, different agencies, consulting on different laws that we have to deal with. And so it takes time. I do see about 10 permits come across my desk every month, if not more. And so I know they're moving. And so I'll stop there, but I know they're moving in the process.
So you're saying they may be in the process of being approved. I mean, I don't know, maybe January there's more. This report includes November and December, and it shows 0 for November and 2 for December. And people have said, well, you haven't been funded. That's why things have slowed down. Is there truth to that? Have you not been properly funded to do this work?
Our funding comes from Congress. Our funding is, I'll say, dispersed monthly. There is limited funding for across the nation. And so each district within the Corps gets allocated money, and each district has a different size program. The Sacramento district has a very large 408 program. If you're comparing the amount of funds that we receive versus the size of the program across the nation, we don't have the fair share, I guess, if that's what you want to.
I mean, I know you're not responsible for that funding that comes out of Washington, how they allocate those funds, but if you're going to mandate a program like 408, there's a certain responsibility with funding it. You know, I mean, I'm aware of a 4-inch hole pipe drilling to determine this, you know, what the foundation conditions are like. The drilling is not through the levee, it's on the ground. And I think it's been over 2 years trying to get a permit from the Corps for that. That seems just outrageous to me. I mean, I don't understand it. It seems like that's like a 15-minute review and approval. So anyway, I'm pretty frustrated about this, and I don't know if we should try to take it, to division or try to go to someplace to get you guys properly funded so you can do your job. But it's very frustrating from the local level.
I don't think there's a question there, but I just want to comment. You're right. We can't give ourselves money, but we do have daily conversations. Chandra Jenkins, our chief of the 4-H permission section, has conversations almost daily with headquarters folks, trying to pry some money, and so those conversations are happening, and yeah, I think we're trying to do as much as we can with the resources we have.
We've worked with the Sacramento district people for quite a while, and they're very good people. You have great people, they do a good job, but if you're not funded to do the job, then we don't get the result that we need. And I don't know how we change this, because again, somebody in Washington's allocating O&M money around to the districts without regard to what the actual work is. And that's just not right. That's got to change somehow.
That's on our transcript. We clearly need to talk to the appropriate entities. Vice President Vines.
First of all, you can't walk away. Good try. Thanks for being here, and through half the meeting, taking a little bit of tough shots while you're sitting there too, but we love you guys. Is there anything that our staff can do to make it easier? I mean, I don't mean to ask them a question. I know when we send something, we feel like we've got it all buttoned down, but is there anything else that could maybe help the process? I mean, I realize funding is one of those things. It's never going to be as much as anybody wants. We feel that. I'm just curious if there's anything like that, because like Joe's citing, those numbers seem so low, and I know you have a bigger load, but is there maybe a subcommittee to create to make it go quicker? I don't know. I'm just kind of exploring. Or do you find something's being kicked back for some reason?
That's a good question. I haven't sat in the seat that I'm in now very long. I'm actually just doing a temporary position. I don't know if the word's gotten out yet to everybody, but Ryan Larson did take a permanent position in construction division. So he's, you probably won't see him very much. And he's in construction division. And so I've been backfilling him for the last couple of months, and quite frankly, have had my hands pretty full, but trying to ramp up with everything that's going on, especially with section, the 4-H program. In terms of what can be done, I'm trying to learn that myself. I know that a lot of what I'm seeing is we don't have complete packages. And so I'm trying to get a grasp on that. Like sometimes we get a package and we'll start working through the package with different disciplines, engineering division, whoever it might be, and we realize we're missing something. And so I'm not sure how to fix it, because at the moment I don't know how to fix it. I'm just trying to make sure that we do things timely. And so if something needs to be reviewed by engineering division, that they are getting it. And then the other part of it is having the funding, because if we don't have the funding, that person's going to go work on some other project. And so, and then it's harder to get that person back because they've got commitment somewhere else. But we're working through it. I know we meet multiple times a week internally with the Corps, different disciplines, and trying to make sure that we have a collaborative effort on what are you guys working on, what do you guys need, from different disciplines within the Corps, and that helps us get all on the same page so that we can communicate to the board and our different sponsors and get something hopefully timely. I will mention though, sorry.
No, go ahead.
February board meeting, I know we have a topic, agenda item, and so that's another opportunity to ask questions. We're gonna have, Mr. Mike Fong, he's acting section chief for 4A permissions, that he'll be able to answer questions and
Thank you. I did see that as a potential for February, so now it's on and we look forward to that. We'll try to be as positive as possible to get this moving appropriately and helping. Thank you. So you're the acting of what division now?
I'm currently acting levies and channels branch chief.
Levies and Channels Branch, and that's what Mr. Larson was?
Correct.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment on our staff activity reports? Okay, I don't see that. Board comments and upcoming committees. I do know that there's efforts for the coordinating committee to get back on track. It's my assignment with staff. Any other comments on committees, things coming up? I don't see that. Upcoming board meetings will be here at this location, February 28th. And our staff is looking for future locations for our meetings because this one's not going to be available after February, correct? So we might be out on the porch. We'll see. No closed session? Anything for the good of the order, board members? Audience? Online? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.